Well, good evening and welcome to the Expat Man Cave. And you'll see as I bring my colleagues, my friends and gentlemen onto the screen, and I use the term loosely, of course, Garvo in Alfahagra and Andy, the Doc, and Steve in Leiria. This is as random as a Gareth Southgate selection tonight. People missing, unexpected people in the bagging area, all that sort of thing. Steve, good evening to you. You're very welcome to the Man Cave. How are you and who are you? Who are you?
I'm Steve, also known as Pricey. I have many names. I'm abusive. I'm a troublesome lefty from Birmingham. I was born in Smethwick, which you probably may or may not know where Smethwick is. And what do I know about me? I'm a West Brom fan, Baggies fan. So we're at the Villa, obviously. Don't know.
You're most
music, politics. What do you want to talk about?
We'll bring it all in tonight. We were on air. I looked at the last week's show. We were on air for 4 hours, I think, last week.
Yeah.
Epic effort. I mean, why would anyone want to watch that, let alone be on it? But so kind are the viewers around the world. With an opening there, Ola from Anna Maria Island in Florida. Charles, are you away and in your kind of spring break business going on over there? Sort of thing. David Durham. Oh, actually, I'll do these in order so we don't miss anybody. Nubianet is here. Oh, this should be good. Why? Because we've got the extreme left here tonight, Nubianet. We are leaning right over, aren't we? politically here. Whoa! and Eric J says, "Hola, boa noite, gents," as well. And David Durham's here. Always good value. He was a late entry and he stirred it right up last week.
Liked it a lot. Yeah,
absolutely. I was trying to go at 12:30, and or even 11:30, I think, and we were still at it, weren't we? At midnight, and then 1 o'clock, talking about drugs, I think, weren't we? Benoit, responsibly, of course, and open-mindedly. Andrew Gilchrist is here. Benoit, I'll put the link on the screen. David, Andrew, whoever. Snatty Phil might like to join us as well. Good evening to you, Snatty. Well, I thought we'll call you that tonight in the Man Cave. Benoit to you. We never did do nicknames, did we? Although we do have a Pricey, a Garvo, and a Doc tonight, so maybe we did. Charles is in Florida. Fantastic to hear from you. Kent is in the United States. Benoit to you. Kent, fantastic. So many people here so quickly tonight. Benoit, great topic, guys. Yes. Tell you all about that in just a moment. They might not want to talk about it. It was only my idea, Victoria. Good evening from Stephen Wills, who I know is supportive of tonight's topic, or one of them anyway. Cheers, Charles, from Eric J. I'm on holiday. Oh, yes, of course. You say vacation, don't you, over there, Charles? Hope you're having a great time. And it's really good of you to check in with us while you're on holiday, honestly. Victoria Benson, yes, Andrew saying hello to everybody else. And Snatty Phil, it was nice hearing your story and passion yesterday at the end. Oh, I missed that, didn't I? And it wasn't being recorded. I think I must have missed that. Good evening. Yes, the evening's going back and forth in the comments. And last one for now, Benoit Adoras from Jersey. Prochniki. Dzień dobry. Oh, is it right to say dzień dobry at this time of the evening? Probably not. You'll correct us on that, Jersey, I'm sure. Going back then to the mention of the theme tonight, or a possible theme, Victoria supportive, Stephen supportive. Is vulnerability a weakness in men? And I think we've got a good lineup to be talking about that. That's not going to faze anybody in the Man Cave this evening. But before we go there, I think, Garv, I wanted to say a little bit about the terrible pile of dog poo that we experienced over the last 90 minutes or so.
well, yeah. I mean, what can you say? I thought the young guys might be here to vent their spleen, so I could kind of chew it over with them. But it was uninspired. It was edgy. It was third rate. The Scottish were all over us.
It was a mess.
Absolutely,
it was a mess. It was a mess on both sides. I was supporting Scotland, and it was a mess. The whole game was uneventful, uninspiring, and it's the fact that some people actually paid money to watch it is criminal. I think they should go and arrest all those involved.
That's harsh. But when you're in power, is that the sort of thing that's going to happen, Doc?
Yeah.
Okay, Eric J's come on, David as well. We're talking about soccer, gentlemen. Good evening, Eric. Good evening, David.
Good evening.
Andrew Scotland did not win. It was a 0-0 draw, a point
We're
for
talking
each.
about soccer, gentlemen. Good evening, Eric.
Who's repeating on themselves there? If you could turn down your... Oh, yes, someone's turned off the broadcast there. That's good. Yes, it was a 0-0 draw. Thank you, Antonio F. Special mention to Cairo, who do beautiful Egyptian food in Kaldash Diranya. Very good of you to join us tonight. And we love your food. We absolutely love your food. Fantastic Egyptian food in Kaldash Diranya, which you could try next time you're here, Garvo. Bonoit from Scott Wicks, you're talking about the game. Oh, I thought you were still reviewing last night's wines, the big pile of dog poo. It wasn't that bad. I wasn't that impressed. The red wasn't so great, was it? But Garvo loved the wine.
Even if it wasn't chilled.
Even if it what?
Even if it wasn't chilled.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't dog poo, but it wasn't awesome, was it? By any means.
Should have got the right wine. Should have got the right wine.
All right. That's like the Specsavers of viniculture, isn't it? Don't think the French, the Italians, or Portugal will be quaking in their boots having watched England. No. It might be a big psychological operation just to mess with people's minds, and they were holding back, and they'll just give it everything. Cometh the hour, cometh the men. No. Okay, Snaddy Phil, England go through probably second in the group. Perfect performance. Oh, okay. Strategy there. Okay, vulnerably reclining on the sofa with a vodka and tonic, waiting for this to happen, aren't you, Victoria? Pre-gaming before a night out to celebrate a massive milestone achieved today. Do reveal all, if you wish. I mean, tell us what that might be, if you don't mind. My prediction, Andrew Gilchrist, Portugal versus France in the final. I think that's a pretty safe bet, isn't it? England with way better players, home advantage, fans in the stadium couldn't beat Scotland. Yes, that has to be said. I just saw the score, 0-0, Anna Mill. Hello, Anna. Nice to have your company. Mike's flight. Lee Dixon criticising you for being slow. It's like a hummingbird telling you to calm down a bit. Very good. A couple more. Victoria, Eric J. Oh, yes, they're saying hi to everybody. Southgate is clueless, says Sean G. And I think Snatty Phil is already into the vulnerability and vulnerably folding the laundry whilst we get ready for this a conversation about vulnerability. Any more about the football while I have a sip on the beer?
Just 2 hours of my life I'll never get back.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank God I can support Portugal.
I'll be rooting for Germany tomorrow.
Yeah. What? You're rooting for Germany tomorrow?
Yes, till I get to Portugal.
Ooh, that's awkward. Okay.
You do realise this is recorded and people can watch it. So you're going to be a wanted man when you get here.
That's fine.
On your visa application, it'll say denied. Please see 19th of June 2021 Man Cave.
Did you say this or not? I'll have to delete this one, won't I, Eric? I think.
Yep.
Okay. Where is Joel, actually? Sorry, say that again.
I said even if he is there eating his tromoshosh.
Yeah, yes, that's right. He's trying to fit in on one level, isn't he? But then supporting the Germans, I think, is a gross error of judgment. Dare I play a WhatsApp message that's come through from Frank? I think he's just doing his nut about the football. Should I play it?
Yeah,
go on.
The good news is Pickford is proving me wrong. He's in tournament form. He looks very good, and the defense looks solid. Stones in the back is looking very good. I believe that England will have to rely on their defense because midfield and forwards have nothing left. I think they gave it all during the season with their clubs.
Oh, nothing too controversial, and
that sounds like an excuse to me. That sounds like an excuse. Were you watching the same game?
How long ago did you leave that message?
Yeah.
Normally he says "love you, Carl" at the end as well, so I'm a bit upset about that. There's also this.
Yes, Michael. Unfortunately, I feared this match would happen after the last match. Sterling suddenly becomes a hero after scoring 1 goal. He's got no consistency. I don't understand how guys like Sterling, Rashford, Shaw can make it to the England team. Meanwhile, Grealish and Sancho are sitting on the bench. I just don't understand the sense of how Southgate picks these teams. He's obviously not a tactician. This is against a dog shit team like Scotland, who worked very hard. There was no way that England draws this one. There was no energy. Kane looked dry. Kane was. I don't even understand. If he's unfit, then why not start with somebody else right up front who can give you some energy? Sorry, guys.
What's happened there? He's had a breakdown or something.
The good news is Pickford is proving me wrong. He's in tournament form. He looks very good, and the defense looks solid. Going to the back is looking very good. I believe that England will have to rely on their defense because midfield and forwards have nothing left. I think they gave it all during the season with their clubs.
So that's what the 1 times and 1.5 times and the 2 times button does on WhatsApp, everybody, in case you know. Right. Oh, okay. So Joel is looking for the light, and some say he is the light. 0-0 soccer game, how heart-pounding. Yes. Carlos Ribeiro. Un abraço de em português. Amanhã vamos ganhar. Yeah, we're going to win tomorrow, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank God I can support Portugal, someone said. But Portugal were dreadful the other day, so that's not a great plan, perhaps. Oh, no pleasing Max tonight. Nubianet. Oh, yeah, okay. The ladies are talking to each other here. And I think they have come to watch and possibly heckle as we talk, as we become vulnerable, or
that's
at least...
That's because they can't get their own group together after 6 months.
Well said, Doc. It's the truth. I mean, there's no need to fact check. There's no need for anyone to get upset. That is pure data, isn't it? That is pure data. Group, no group, there is no group. And we can safely say that. And no one need to be upset about it. It is just a fact. My hope...
You, Carl, don't have to wear a gold mankini. You're so lucky.
Everyone's been spared that. My hopes are with Portugal, Finland and Switzerland. Not exactly inspiring. And yes, good question, Victoria. MIA still missing in Algarve, which is an actual Portuguese thing we're discovering. Sean G. Giggling, I think, probably at Frank's fast report there. There he is, yes. Frank. We can hear him but not see him. What does Joel know about football? Oh, is that why he's hold on a second here. This just in.
Whoa.
Oh my Lord Almighty. Look what the cat dragged in. Eugene.
Stand
I
by.
can't wait to hear what Eugene has to say about the game.
What?
Hey, fuckers.
Good evening to you as well, Father Eugene. How are you?
Huh?
It's a very straightforward question. How are you?
I fucking know. You're above ground, that's always a good sign. Hey, how's the farm of you, my friend?
I'm very well, very well. It's so good to see
Nobody
you.
gives a fuck about you. I was asking you.
I'm all right, mate. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm good to see you again. Good to see you.
Do you want to continue to work the room, Eugene?
If they muted him.
Oh, fuck no, man. No. Just fucking having a smoke and a drink here. Listening
All right. Okay, well, just chip in in your unique way
channeling his father, Ted.
Yes.
It's David's face that's making me laugh.
What?
It's like what the...
Okay, all right. Eugene, could you just say something else for a minute? A couple of sentences.
Fucking my parents was giving me a chip.
Okay, great. You know, sometimes technical difficulties can be a blessing, Victoria. I'm going to say. And this sounds promising. Men together speaking in public from Marissa Monteiro. Yeah, I know. Look, seriously, I think this is Father Ted known in the United States? Is that why people are heckling you in this way, Eugene? Oh no, about being vulnerable.
That's
hold on.
racism, Karen. That's what it fucking is. Fucking blatant fucking racism.
It's racism.
Fucking honks.
Okay. And that's why
that's about 10 minutes.
Who's feeling vulnerable already?
Yeah.
I know.
Eugene is.
I'm feeling very vulnerable now.
Everyone knows rooting for Germany, right?
I don't. Is that a direct looking like John Barnes? No, it's not. Oh, just Scotch. No, you use the word Scotch rumours. I don't know if that's right to say that. He started to make sense when he was played faster. So maybe we should all do that tonight as well. And maybe go at 1.5 and 2 times speed, especially as we get towards midnight and 1 o'clock. I would never heckle a sensitive man. They're the only type I like. So at least pretend to be vulnerable, guys, this evening. Max Flight, coach's fault. More until you guys chime in, I'm going to still keep reading comments. So feel free to butt in and heckle from your side of the counter, chaps. Respected Hungary for no reason.
That Persian cunt?
That's Charles. He's one of your friends, Eugene.
Who?
He's asking where Frank is.
Decent chap. Where the fuck's that Persian cunt?
Okay. He's in the Algarve, seeing as you ask, Eugene. And we have to say, yeah, you have been warned. The ticker tape says it all, really. This show may contain male adult humour and is not best suited to the easily offended. This sounds...
You're easily offended.
It's evening from João Mendonça, who you've not met yet, Eugene. There's a few gentlemen here you've not rubbed shoulders with before. Good evening, geezers. The Scots took over London. All the hype for 0-0. So true. Pete's here as well. Pete Bleach. Hold on a minute. There's so many comments coming in. You guys are not getting a word in here. So I'm going to probably have to... Oh, my goodness. Hold on. Where are we in the comments? Is Father Ted bothered?
Somebody needs to call Joel and get him in here.
I don't know what's happening with Joel. Okay, about being vulnerable as well. Yeah, Marissa's tuned in for that. Oh, Pete Bleach's comments here. Evening all. Hope everyone had a good week. Garvo, there seems to no end to how lovely you are.
Well, that's very nice. I don't know what brought that on, but that's very nice of you to say, Pete. Thank you very much.
There you go.
If you was here now, we'd give a big sloppy kiss.
Oh dear.
I think why the women are tuning into the man cave. It's not 50 Shades of Grey; it's over 50 Shades of Grey.
Very good.
Especially here, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. True story. Thank you for that, Andrew. But you're not including yourself in that, I'm sure.
Listen, I'm great to qualify.
There's at least one person here that's not 50.
Many, I think.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah. Okay. Good night from Maud Azam as well. How are you? We're doing good here. We're about to. I mean, I think there's a little slightly edgy atmosphere because we're waiting to talk about vulnerability, or maybe I'm over-egging that particular pudding. Sounds Stephen Wells. Guessing he sounds like that when you're stood next to him as well. If you're talking about him being Eugene, you might be right. You may well be right there. And Father Eugene reminds me of an unfortunate incident with the priest back in the 70s. Anyway, carry on. Thank you, Diffie Dog, for that. I hope we haven't caused too much of a problem. And there is no helpline to call at the end, I'm afraid. Guys, I see you laugh as a coping mechanism to talk about difficult topics. But we are here to help, says Marissa. So do you want to join us on the screen, Marissa, to kind of facilitate the discussion? Maybe you're a facilitator or that sort of professional. I would welcome that.
Ladies are big talkers, but they can't even organize their own program.
Don't look no better.
See, everyone opened up suddenly together there. That was nice. I'm wet and sad.
I'm fine. I'm not vulnerable anymore.
You just found.
Yeah, in the back of the fridge, one of the stronger brews. Oh, that's nice. I'm happy now.
Oh,
speaking for you.
Speaking of beer,
what are we all drinking tonight?
Well, I was just going to say, this is a little nod to our American cousins. I've got a American Shipyard, which is an IPA from Maine, and it's a very nice drop too.
Very well done, sir.
Very good. Eric, you always have something interesting. What do you got there?
I have a Big Mouth IPA from a brewery in Charlotte, as usual.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And oh, here he is. Joel is here tonight. What you been, mate?
Now we can start.
Yeah, look at that lovely face.
Good evening, Joel.
Great to. Good evening to you as well. God, what's wrong with everyone tonight? This
Shades of grey.
Joel, what you doing soccer game this afternoon?
Sorry.
Joel, did you enjoy the soccer game this afternoon?
I don't watch football.
England and Scotland played. You didn't see it?
No.
Oh.
I don't not follow any type of football.
Okay. Yeah. That's a bit of a conversational cul-de-sac, isn't it? Marissa Monteiro, who I think has tuned in specifically to ask, find out about male vulnerability, is saying I can help by sending questions. So I'm good with that. Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
That's our first gesture of vulnerability. See right there.
We don't have to answer.
That's true. That's true as well. Which amendment is that? Hi, Joe. Glad to see you can make it. Victoria's happy to see you. Oh, we all are, by the way.
Sorry, I was a little bit late than usual. I had to do a emergency run to the pharmacy to buy pain medication for my father because he decided to put permanent teeth implants.
Oh boy.
Oh dear. Okay, so he's feeling a bit tender, is he? Well, do send him our best, won't you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Have we lost Steve now? Are we too boring for Steve? Has he gone out on the lash on his own, Doc?
Well, Stevie was up from 3:30 this morning in order to get a bus and then a train and then another train to Luton from Birmingham. So he's a bit tired and he's gone to bed.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, that's not a cracking start for us, is it? Nothing personal.
But he will be back next week. He promises.
All right. Diffie Dog. Oh, Diffie, stop it. It's football, not soccer. Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't read that. Put it back.
Don't be like that. I thought you were late because you were washing your hair. Maybe explains why he is supporting Germany. There you go. Straight at you, Eric.
I'm from the United States and we call it soccer. That's why I called it soccer. Sorry.
Yeah, you're forgiven for not understanding how sport really are made from.
Yeah.
Oh dear, oh dear. Peter Bleach, thank you too, Joel, for helping with my.
What you call football is rugby with shoulder pads and a helmet.
Okay.
Just teasing a little bit, no, just joking.
Joel, are you a tractor consultant now as well?
What?
Are you a tractor consultant?
Tractor, yeah, it seems so.
Okay, great.
Tractor, van, camper van, cars.
Hey, Joel, thanks very much for the help you gave me this week.
Sure, no problem.
Much appreciated, my friend.
Yeah, I know the search could have been wider, but consider the region. Few choices were available.
You could definitely set up a service there, helping stupid fuckers like me, and
don't put that on the business card though. You probably could phrase it a bit better than that.
Hopefully, a public schoolboy cunt.
Guilty as charged. I don't know what to say to that apart from yeah, you're right. Thank you to Joel. Okay, so we had this repeat. Hopefully that's not the only long-standing thing in Fundale tonight, Pete. Well, hey, okay. So Marissa, your questions then, and I want to hear from you guys. You know, do we just want to not talk about this? Do you want to talk about this? Do you want a little bit more context, background? Who wants to open the batting?
Well, I'll tell you what, this was a continuation from kind of last week's Man Cave, wasn't it? Where we were discussing like individuals' freedoms and to use recreational substances or drink or whatever. And we were discussing like, where does this kind of behavior come from, doesn't it? So I guess there's a whole can of worms you could open from the backstories of people, couldn't you?
Thank you, Andrew. And last night as well, we talked about going for massages, didn't we?
I think we're off a tangent, but
What have you been at? What have you been at? I haven't been here for a while. Is this massages with a happy ending?
They're not Father Eugene. Yes. Oh, and drugs as well. We were talking. So yeah, it's kind of been on the cards, hasn't it, in many ways. Now we're talking about therapeutic massage, and how one is in quite a vulnerable sort of situation there. And
sounds very fucking suspicious to me, huh?
Thank you for the benefit of the doubt there. But Marissa,
well, we know what fuckers like you get up to.
what? Because you can see into our souls.
Well, you don't. You're a certain type, Karen.
You can see what?
Every man that goes looking for somebody else, they start rubbing him. He's only looking to be rubbed in one fucking place. And no, I'm hugely suspicious of that sort of behaviour.
Are you? But is that because you are maybe a little bit?
No, it's because I'm not a cunt.
All right. Okay.
It's amazing that I have a lot of difficulty hearing Eugene, except for that one word.
Yeah, that goes through me every time, and
you get used to that one.
Yeah, this is why I'm glad we're not regulated by Ofcom, for example.
Sorry, I'm not trying to cause any offence.
It's too late.
Sort of calling somebody a blackguard or something like that there.
If you wouldn't mind substituting blackguarding occasionally, that would be really good.
I will do my very best for you guys.
Thank you very much indeed. So, I mean, she's throwing a gauntlet down here. This is revealing. This is why there are so many sports programs in Portugal. Beer and sports, but if it works, it works. Okay, that is a little bit of a veiled challenge there. Go on, Gary.
Okay, Marissa, you've cued me off, right? Men and vulnerability. All this banter and all this laughter and all this, testing each other out. Men do this, and we're always sort of assessing each other. We're kind of competing. I mean, we can do that physically. We can do it in sports. We can do it in conversation. And like vulnerability, we start talking about very sensitive things or very deep things. That can not necessarily sit very well with men because vulnerability is in your own mind is a sort of a weakness. And when you're in that sort of arena where you're competing, then showing your soft underbelly is a distinct advantage, or that is probably how the way it seems in most men's minds. Do I have a sort of an agreement from you guys on that? Do you think?
To a great extent.
Yeah. I don't really understand it, Garbo.
Okay, Eugene. I'll put it in your frame, right?
You gotta use the word cunt.
If it's a gentle hint, I will not fucking get it.
Gary, use the word black.
No, mate. Yeah, I know you, Eugene. You are a quite sensitive man, right? There's all this bravado and all this all this armor plating, all this armor plating on the outside. But you're in there. You're an intelligent man. And deeply down inside, you are sensitive. You can be hurt, and I know what you're about. But you're all in the face job. Get them before they get you.
Only about a crack, Garbo. Only about a crack.
Yeah. Well, what the lady's trying to find is why can't we be a little more sort of a bit like them, I suppose, because they can talk about things, relationships and stuff. But men don't do that. That's not our way normally because. We've got the things,
But we don't have
been culturally programmed into us for thousands of generations to be strong and tough and competitive and the alpha male, and it takes a hell of a lot of work to undo a lot of that shit. We've been trying. The movement to try and do that has been going on for about 50 years. 50 years to undo 50 generations of shit is not enough. So, we're starting to get there, but it's a long, laborious process, I think.
But that's our traditional role, right?
Well, are you talking about Western culture? I don't think this is necessarily a global phenomenon.
Interesting. How so, David?
There are, like, I can't name any right now, but I've heard there are cultures where it's a sort of female dominated culture. They are usually lead the tribe, so to speak.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
On the
Joel. You gonna say
Inuit,
something?
On the Inuit, don't the Inuit tend to be
that sounds
Well,
right.
there tends to be more African tribes tend to have the female male role model. What I mean is the females are the ones. There are some tribes in Central Africa where the female takes the role of the man, where they can have multiple partners, even, and they are the ones that are the ones that take care of the family, so to speak. So the man takes the role of what we know or used to know, like, for example, since medieval ages, that women are the ones that should be at home and not working. That usually happens in some tribes in Central Africa, whereas the other way around, the man is the one that stays at home and takes care of the kids, and the woman is the one that does all the heavy lifting.
Well, so I think that so we're sort of talking about gender at this point, and
since he was mentioning that there are some civilizations or
cultures,
where the roles are inversed. That doesn't, I don't know, because I didn't live there, to a point of understanding how men really act there, or their understanding of manhood in regards to Western civilization as we know it.
Yeah, and it's kind of controversial right now, especially in Western culture, because this idea of gender and your role in society is being questioned publicly. Gay rights, trans rights, all these things they're questioning the modern stereotype of what it means to be a man or a woman.
Can I just weigh in on top of this? There's a guy I watched on YouTube with quite an interesting take on things. Jordan Peterson,
yes,
I've heard of him, says that the problem with modern society is men are being emasculated because of all this kind of woke culture and everything else. We're kind of losing our identities in modern society, and maybe there's a lot of pressure on the male to adapt and change.
Well, yeah, I like Jordan Peterson. He has a lot of, from what I've seen, he has a lot of good videos. I guess he has a couple of books. I haven't read them. But one thing he talks about is there's a little bit of a controversy right now in whether or not someone is 100% male, 100% female, or somewhere in between.
Look, do you have a dick, and then do you have a vagina? That's the simple question.
Well, it's not that simple, because some people have both.
Okay, I'm talking the 99th percentile on the planet, of course.
Correct. Yeah.
There are exclusions to every rule, but I'm just saying, if your nature just dictates that you're male, you're born male, unless you're born female with a male brain or a male perspective.
Right.
Then there's obviously transgender, which is fine. It's, people do what they want to do. That's cool. But I'm talking of a stereotypical male role dominance as being undermined from seemingly all angles.
Sometimes you undermine your own dominance. That can happen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can I throw in there? This argument about gender and sexual identity and everything, right? I've kind of been thinking, because like you, Andrew, I'm male in my own mind, and women are women. And then again, right? We don't really want to be defined by our penis or what's downstairs. Don't you want to be defined as a person? That's the important thing. And I understand people who don't want to be defined by their sexuality or their gender. They want to be, defined as people. And I get that, and I don't think it's right to sort of jump on their case and say, well, you're ridiculous or whatever. It's their choice. If they want to be called this or they want to be called that, that's their prerogative. It's their life. So why do we get so twisted up about it? It's their life. They never get on with it. So,
but what I object to is the fact that like I'm forced to acknowledge that there's no actual typical gender anymore. There's gender fluidity, there's LBG, and Christ knows what the rest of it is, and transgender, trans, pan, tri-bi, multiply, whatever you want to name it. I haven't got
There's
enough
a plus
time in
in
my
there.
brain to process it. I'm just a simple man. I like yes, no, black, white, woman, man.
That's fine. That's fine. That is your prerogative, same as it's their prerogative.
But I hate
You
it.
don't have any right to say.
Have to kind of memorize 8,000 different perspectives.
The shortest way around it is if you meet somebody who has that, you know, say how do you want to be addressed? How do you want to be treated?
Yeah.
Well, this is. I do want to address that, Andrew, because I think you used the word "forced to," and this is very very interesting to me because I see this leveled at woke culture, and it struck me the other day that woke culture, as it's sort of characterized, is although it's much more sort of politically heavy. I suddenly thought it's not unlike being a model rocker in the '60s. As this upsetting force among young people.
Fuck off, Karen. Fucking rocker. Like punk and stuff like that there.
Yes, I think it's like that, Eugene.
Fuck off. Fuck away off.
Eugene sounds vulnerable right now.
He does sound very vulnerable.
You rattled his stereotype, that's what it is.
It's a tough guy routine.
Fucking punks and fucking rockers. Back when people were getting the shit kicked out of them, you know, just because of the type of music that they fucking like.
Well, that's exactly.
Compare these fucking wankers that start squinting in the middle of a fucking square when you hear a pronoun that hasn't been used correctly.
You're being far too controlled, mate.
Oh, fuck you off, Andy. You are a self-confessed fucking leftist extremist.
I am a leftist extremist, and I don't. That's got nothing to do with Eugene. I'm clearly much more comfortable in my own than you are in yours.
Full round.
You're an extremist.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to mute him up for a minute. Eugene, carry on with that because it sounds like you need to get that out of your system. But let's get Andrew back.
Okay. When I say I'm forced to, I literally am having to accept a modern vernacular of I can't assume just because someone dresses as a guy that they identify as a man. They might be homosexual, fine, whatever, but they might identify as gender fluid or a woman or curious. I mean, but I have to not now assume anything. I cannot. I could jeopardize my employment in any tiny woke circumstance that offends someone. Whereas before, it's like, surely in a professional environment, you leave everything outside the fucking door and just get on with what you're there to do.
I don't think it's that simple as you jeopardize your employment by one mistake. Usually it's a series of events.
Well,
you know, where you sort of disrespect somebody. That's what would, and I don't, you know,
it's not. I don't purposely go away to disrespect anyone. It's just if someone takes offence, which modern snowflakery seems to be very easy to do these days, and you have to be.
That's true.
Careful at what comes past your lips. I almost have to filter before I speak and edit what I'm thinking.
Or you might get cancelled. The other thing that people
really,
talk about.
Really? I mean, who really gets cancelled?
Well, if you get fired from your job.
Well, if you don't get cancelled, you get attacked. For example, if you agree with something on social media, or like for me, for example, on Twitter, I have one simple statement on my profile that says, I'm a fucking man, get on with it. Simple as that. Who gets offended? I don't give a fuck.
Have you been cancelled because of that?
No, but I've been on Twitter.
People lose their job over this stuff.
I've been on detention from Twitter for 7 days.
Okay,
but I addressed something by calling our current prime minister a fucking coward piece of shit.
Yeah.
And no, actually, it was a retarded piece of shit. And just because the word retarded was written in Portuguese, that was grounds enough for Twitter to put me on detention for 7 days.
And fair enough. I think fair enough.
The Portuguese word and the connotation of the Portuguese word on that phrase was to represent the lack of intelligence of our prime minister in addressing certain situations. Now, the thing regarding sex, and I said this before, I do not care if the person is straight, gay, bi, lesbian, trans, ape, or wherever. To me, it doesn't count. As long as the person respects me, I will respect them. As simple as that. Now, the personal sexual choice of each individual to its own. Now, if the individual forced me to say, oh, you're a bi, trans, whatever, I will not apply it, because to me, in my personal point of view, you are either a man or a woman.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you're welcome to your personal point of view, aren't you? But what seems to be being talked about here,
and that's what I'm trying to say. That doesn't show any lack of respect for the person in front of me addressing me, as long as she, he, him, it, or whatever respects me first.
It is not one of the accepted pronouns.
Same amount of weight, because other than that, it will not work with me.
Don't use it.
Okay, hold on, because we've got washing is done, so Snatty is giving us his full attention. Got a little bit of catching up to do. Nubianet, I really like this Nubianet. This is people being more themselves, for better or for worse, in my view. But it's true, Nubianet, you're right. The only thing new is that there's less suppression of people being their authentic selves. But also, the other part of that Nubianet, there's more channels of expression. So that's why we're hearing it, and that's why people are getting uncomfortable. Because
No. There's something more going on.
Go on.
There is.
I think let's go to Andrew first, and then we'll come back to you, David, on what else is going on.
I'll reiterate my perspective. I don't care what people want to do or what they want to call themselves. I just don't want to have the finger pointing at me going, "Oh, you're a bigot, you're not woke or whatever," just because. Like, this is a relatively kind of recent expansion of self-expression. I agree with Nubianet, and I agree people should have the right to be themselves. Absolutely. I just don't want to be held account for unwittingly offending someone because I've said, all right, sir or ma'am, and they're not, or they don't identify. And like, how the hell am I supposed to know? Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is a minefield, an absolute minefield.
Well, surely, first time you come across this with a person, you have the you're able to get away with calling them what you think they are, and they will correct you, and that'll be okay. People now put what their preferred gender pronoun on Twitter and in their email signatures, etc., in order to ensure that people don't end up making the mistake of identifying them as that which looks obvious at first glance. I'm getting a bit old for all of this. This is new to me, but I'm very having said that, I understand it, and I'm sensitive to it. I'm always going to make the mistake. I will always forget to do it. However, I empathise with it, and I think it's a good way forward. But I do not think we should have the bloody political correctness police killing people when they make a mistake.
And I think that's what Andrew's getting at.
Oh yeah.
Wait a second, because depending on the company that you're in at the particular time and what you say or what you do, you could be totally blown out of the water, or you may get a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it's a complete minefield out there. You have no idea where you're walking.
Yeah. There was a good story. I mean,
fortunately enough, in Portugal, that is not happening yet. But it will happen. There are still standards of respect for the person. If the person appears to be a female, you are treated as a female. If the person appears to be a male, you are treated as a male. No gender fluidity or anything else. Either man or woman. Fortunately enough for Portugal.
Gary.
I'll reiterate this story. I've told it once a long time ago. Is that I was going into a building, right? And you're aware of somebody behind you. Well, good manners tells me that open the door for somebody. That's what I was taught. It just so happened to be a woman, yeah. And I opened the door, and she just gave me the abuse. Don't patronise me. I'm not this, that, and the other. That. And like she literally took me down to the bone. She ripped me to bits. And I'm standing there with the door in my hand, and I'm thinking, well, I didn't deserve that, really. I was just trying to be nice. It didn't matter to me whether you're a man or a woman. It's just good manners. But she perceived it as me being a patronising.
That for me works either for men or women. If both men reach to the door and I'm first to grab handle, I let them pass first. To me, that is not a gender choice.
That's called common courtesy.
If I am the first to arrive at the door and opening the door, and there's a person standing on the other side, independently if there is a man or a woman, I let him go through first.
You know what? You know what's interesting about this? This is a type of body language. The person who goes last through a doorway is perceived to be more powerful. Did you guys know this? Like, if you ever see like two powerful leaders meet, they're going to kind of struggle a little bit over who's the last one to go through the door.
And it's like shake hands.
Marcelo and Trump.
Powerful guy will shake from the top.
Yeah.
Maybe this was my generation or our generation, but I was raised to hold the door for someone who was respectful.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's common courtesy.
If it's my choice to be courteous, why should someone then call me a bigot for holding a door open?
Yeah, because we live in a world of free speech, and that is a demonstration of free speech. That person can say that because that's life. And you see, if we bring this back to vulnerability, we then, where we went with vulnerability was sort of gender politics. And I think some of our feelings about what we think about these things, rather than going into our own vulnerability. And it's very interesting that
talk about anybody's fucking feelings. Honestly, who gives a flying fiddler's fuck?
Well, let's find out.
Craig,
you can answer that question, Eugene.
Your feelings. I don't give one monkey's fuck.
And you're right.
The things I care about.
You're right.
People like Gary there. Gary, you were a boxer in your day.
I was a what? Sorry.
A boxer.
Well, not a boxer now. In my younger days, I had a go, but
you had the balls to step into the squared ring, and have a go at somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you done that multiple times. Am I wrong?
Well, yeah. You're right. I did do that. Yeah.
But still, when I hear Gary, put forth his point of view, even if I don't respect, that's the wrong thing to say. Even if I don't agree with Gary's point of view, I still respect it, because I identify with Gary as being a man that, by his own admission, has fought, has worked in factories, has worked with the military, has encountered darker sorts of humor, and has not been offended by that. I respect Gary. I really do. He's the sort of guy that I would look to, and I would say to myself, well, no, Jesus, if I'm not behaving correctly in this sort of situation, how would somebody like Gary behave? I'm not blowing smoke up your arse, Gary. But
it's a good job. It's a good job here.
And I would respect you and your points of view.
That's why I coined him as the man of reason, Eugene.
Exactly.
Good job. It's a good job you're always sure then of how you're doing, because I never see you acting or behaving like Gary yet.
The problem is, Andy, I come from a place that is very much ruled by survivor fucking mentality, or survivor sense of humor, and wankers like you would last about 2 minutes in my time. You would get the shit.
You got Eugene. You have got no idea. You have got no idea what I have survived, where I have worked, what I have experienced.
Fucking 40 years of age.
No idea, mate.
You would last 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
No idea.
Take your opinions and shove them up your fucking hole. You're an extremist.
Okay.
Eugene, you have no fucking
Elisa's hit the nail on the head, right? We're all old school. We're old school.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Eugene is definitely old school, but we do all need a space to be heard and respond. Okay, Eugene. So we get your judgment about me earlier on about the doc there, but let him respond as well to that. Okay. I mean, we totally get it how you feel about us, and this is an interesting thing because you said, who cares about other people's feelings. I'm not saying you should necessarily care about other people's feelings. To me, we're talking about vulnerability tonight, and vulnerability is being aware of your own feelings. Okay, and that was a possible topic of conversation here. If you are a man and you are triggered, as people have been tonight, by certain conversational topics, the interesting thing about vulnerability is to own and address that, isn't it? It's like, why is this stuff about gender winding me up so much? And vulnerability to me would say, why am I getting so upset about that? So I'm not trying to tell you to be more respectful of other people's feelings or anything like that, Eugene. I'm saying vulnerability. What?
Oh, sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. Oh.
No. It's fine.
It's not that I'm disrespectful of Andy's feelings or anything at all like that there. And instead of listening to this woke bullshit forever and ever.
Yeah, but what is the woke? See, what I'm saying is to you, your feelings seem to be being hurt by woke bullshit. You're angry about it. That's a feeling. Why is it winding you up so much?
No, well, what's making you think that I'm upset about it? The word bullshit.
Because it's bullshit. But why? I mean, just to say it's bullshit.
Nonsense. That's just nonsense.
Okay. So
you can't go through your life being hypersensitive to everybody's feelings. You're going to
You're not hearing me. You're not hearing me. I'm talking about your feelings, not other people's feelings now. So why are you getting so upset about it? That's your feeling, isn't it, about it? What's getting you going about it? And Andrew, and possibly David, and maybe Eric as well.
I'm going to let Eugene go first.
Well, I suppose, personally, I wasted 13 years of my life listening to left-wing extremists who happened to be my partners at that time.
Got it,
and
okay.
After 13 years, I just thought, fuck, that's enough. Anything
all right.
Now I'm going to call it out for what it is. Instead
Thank you for that.
Silent, hoping that you're going to get the right at the end of the night.
Yep, got it.
I'm just going to say here, no, you're full of shit. You're virtue signaling. You're prostituting. No, you're trying to show everybody what a lovely person you are, but in actual fact, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
No, be real. Like I know that I'm a vulgar, ugly cunt, but no, I own that.
Yeah, fair enough. No, and you that's without being patronising or anything. Yeah, I mean, we completely accept you here, brother to brother, man to man, in this environment. And we come as we are, and then we have a conversation. This is what I think people can see, whether they like it or not, and this is where the conversation begins. So yeah, you saw how much love there was for you when you arrived this evening.
For sure.
Yeah.
I enjoy the crack. If I'm causing offence to anybody, I honestly, I'm not trying to be personal. I really am not.
All right.
I'm sorry about that.
Eugene, can I just come back on a couple of things that seeing as how I was the target of your attack earlier.
Go ahead,
let me finish. Telling me to take my feelings and blow my ass, and you may have had a difficult time with people with similar politics as me, but let me tell you something. I spent 30 years of my life as a GP in one of the poorest parts of the UK, right? And I spent every day and mostly probably 10, 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, listening to people's situations, having to be aware of their vulnerabilities, helping them deal with those vulnerabilities, and having to be aware of my own vulnerability while I was doing that. So when you tell me, I don't know your background, I don't know what you've experienced.
No, you don't. You definitely don't, Andy. But you've commented on it.
But I do know people who have been in very dark places, and I've helped people who've been in very dark places, and I myself have been in dark places. Okay, and I've dealt with very, very tough situations, both psychologically and physically. Okay, so before you judge me, just maybe understand that my voice and my appearance might belie what I've been through and what I have experienced.
Well, Andy, you judged me before I judged you.
I haven't judged you at all.
On my level of education.
I have not.
So I feel free to comment on you. But
I have not judged you at all, Eugene.
What you're saying. But no,
I haven't judged you in the slightest.
The world you come from is not the world I fucking come from. No, I have had 3 threats of death. No, I've been threatened to be shot 3 times.
So have I.
Who claim to be
I have been threatened with shooting in the middle of Handsworth at 4 o'clock in the morning, mate.
The wrong fucking way.
In the middle of Handsworth.
If that doesn't fit into your worldview, but that happens in reality. When we were in a private school, I was in a school with all sorts. And I had a very privileged education. One of my best friends actually tried to stab me.
Yeah,
I had to get him, and then we became best friends. But one of my best friends tried to stick a knife in me.
Yeah.
Did that happen in your private schools?
Well, actually, in my private school,
Fuck
you
off.
asked the question.
I don't care what you want to say. I really don't. Fuck off.
Eugene, you asked the question in my private school. In my private school.
Andy, come on.
Okay. In my private school. In my private school, a friend of mine was bullied until he hung himself. Okay, all right. In the place where I worked, I was threatened with shooting at 4 o'clock in the morning in the middle of Handsworth. Right? So do not. It's okay. I'm happy. No, I'm happy. So you don't tell me, Eugene, that you, just because you happen to go through a non-private education, have you've cornered the market in terms of difficult backgrounds and difficult life experiences. Because you're talking.
Come on.
No, I'm not.
I don't need you.
All
Get into
Andy, sort that out with Leona for a minute. I'll bring you back on in a minute, and let's have a chat to Eugene and see because he's been ranting all the time. You've been trying to talk there, I think. Eugene, are you going to let other people... mate, I've got to give you a basic ground rule here. You've got to let other people speak, and just like berating them with judgments. As much fun as it might be to watch for some other people, it's not great fun or value from where I'm sitting. And I'm serious. No, mate, I'm really open to having a conversation.
No, to be honest, I don't want to devolve into a fucking argument like that there. I respect everybody's point of view, but I will not be told that my point of view is somehow less or.
I don't think anyone. Honestly, from where I'm sitting, Eugene, I don't think anyone's saying that to you. I think you might have brought that with you tonight. I don't think anyone's saying that this evening. Honestly.
That's possible too.
Can I come in here, guys? Right, I'm
just
going to try and level things down a bit here.
The man of reason.
You've gone into the typical argument here, Eugene. Right? Is that I've got scars? Yeah. In my life, everybody picks up scars. Some people pick up more than others. Some people's scars are deeper than others. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to get into that situation where, you know, well, I've got this one and I've got this one, but my scar's worse than yours.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, man? Everybody
like
got the scars.
George.
Sometimes they're very visible scars. Sometimes they're not so visible. The scars can be in here. So you can't go around saying, well, you don't understand. You don't know the guy. I don't know the guy. I don't know you, right? We've all got our own personal vulnerabilities, yeah? And you've shown that you are vulnerable because whatever has affected you in your life obviously hurts and you're passionate about it. So we don't berate or say that your problems are any less than anybody else's, and neither does Doc's. You have separate lives in different ways. We can't judge each other, right? We can't judge and say, you're better off than me. We don't know that to be certain. I know that you live in Ireland, right? And that's a dangerous place. It's a shitty, dangerous place. But I know Doc has lived in Handsworth, which can also be a shitty, dangerous place. You know, it's probably not on the same level as Northern Ireland, but not far behind. So I can see both your points of view. So you got to give each other a bit of space.
Wise words, Gary. Thank you.
Yeah, well said, Gary. Well said.
Andy, I was not trying to personally attack you. I was just trying to put my point of view forward. It really wasn't a personal attack, and I'm sorry if it came across like that.
Thank you, Eugene.
Yes, nice one, Eugene.
And Andy, I love your woman. I have to say, your woman is amazing.
Protector.
Talking to you from there and doing what she was trying to do. You've got a keeper there, if I may put it like that. And I know you're very well capable of looking after yourself, but how beautiful that Leona was responding in the way she did. Hello, Leona. Lots of love to you, and well said, Gary from Alyssa.
So let's welcome Stephen to the room. Obviously, he came in. Maybe he has something to add to the topic or whatever. There was a reason he came in at this particular time.
Yeah. Before you go with that, Stephen, Scott Wicks makes a very good point here. And I think we are seeing male vulnerability right now. And I would agree with that. We got there. we got there. If not necessarily in the route that women might sort of compute or predict or whatever. But that was quite extraordinary. And I thank you for that, you know, and whatever it was that happened there, that this is a different atmosphere to trading opinions now, isn't it? And just straight up trading judgments. There's something different going on, which Stephen might like to address. Good evening, Stephen.
Good evening. It was actually me yesterday in the wine club that said vulnerability and intimacy would be a good topic.
Thank you very much.
And it was interesting to see. So I was going to join from the start, and then I was feeling, do I want to say these things? Do I want to put myself out there? And Andrew said some stuff. You've mentioned Jordan Peterson, who I follow a lot of his stuff. I don't agree with everything, but I like the way he puts information out there and lets people make the judgment. But a lot of people make the wrong judgment about him. And what happened with the conversation here was it very quickly went into gender identity and bits and pieces like that. Yeah. And for me, that's where vulnerability becomes an issue, because for me, there's nothing wrong with being a guy that is feminine. I am a man. I'm fairly feminine. I'm very soft. I am more caring than other people. And bits and pieces like that. Whereas the trend these days is to push people to think that they're not a man, that they might be a gender or a different gender. And that's where I then jump into the arguments that have been put forward this evening. Yeah. Whereas there's this middle ground of you can be a man and feminine, you can be a woman and masculine, and show those traits. As human beings, we generalize the crap out of everything because there's 7 billion people in this world, and I can't remember a gender pronoun for each of them. So we generalize. As it was said earlier on by Andrew, 99.9% of people will fit into that. There's a small minority that don't. But if we get that wrong, there's a whole bunch of people that are prepared to jump on us for it. And that's where it becomes a problem. The mentality behind looking out for racist people and sexually aggressive people or whatever is right. When you get jumped on for every tiny misdemeanor or infraction, it actually lets the other ones get away with it.
Oh yeah.
If everybody is a racist, if everybody walking down the streets get called a racist, the racist gets away with it.
Interesting.
And that's where in the gender side of it, and for me, one of the questions of vulnerability is, what is it to be a man? I've got no fucking idea. And that's been my problem for the last 49 years. I don't know what the fucking expectation is of me. And therefore I can't live up to it. Therefore I'm always letting myself down on it.
Just be who you are, my friend. Just be who you are and be happy with that.
It's taken me a long time and a lot of work to get to a version of that. But even then I was scared to come on camera and fucking say any of this.
Yeah.
Well said. Thank you for doing it.
Because if my customers see it, and if somebody else sees it, but then again, if someone who's not a customer sees it, they might actually like what I've said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get better
because
customers.
I'm putting it forward in a reasonable way. And it's been also, everyone's got their own history and their own scars and all of that stuff.
Yep.
I was taught he and she. They beat it into me for 20 fucking years when I was a kid. It's now 30 years later. For some of you guys, it's even later than that. I can't unlearn that in a fucking year.
Yeah.
Well said, sir.
Cheers.
I can't. We can't. And this is, we don't get given and it'll take all of this stuff.
Yes.
Sexual politics, gender politics, racism takes generations to learn. We've been evolving into what we are for 100,000, 200,000 years. The pinprick of the last 10 years of the sexual stuff, the last 50 years of racial stuff, it will take 2 to 3 generations, but we'll get better at it every year. Every generation is getting better at it. This is the best time for women in the workplace and all of that kind of stuff. It is the best time, but we don't get given the credit for it. Even the environment. When I was a kid, we had literal rain, which was acid. It was pouring out the sky. We had a hole in the ozone layer, and we've sorted it out. We fixed it. Yes, we've got climate problems now, but it'll move on. All of these things take time, and you can't shoot people for you can't shoot people for the progress they're trying to make.
Thank you, Steve.
Andrew wants to make a comment. I think Andrew's been sitting patiently.
Yeah, well, it's been fascinating to listen to all of you, and I'd like to think myself as a fair-minded and accommodating individual. I really would. There's no part into it. No. My vulnerability that I feel is, I think manhood, as we are as mature men used to, is being eroded away. Where will the man's place be if our typical man role is being eroded? What will become of? Will it be men stay at home and women go to work? I'm cool with that. I'd send my missus to work every day if that was the case.
Okay,
we'll
leave that hanging there.
I don't think we can define now what the role is going to become. In the same way as we didn't know 100 years ago that we would have mobile phones and mass car ownership. We evolve. We evolve physically. We evolve culturally. Things are going to change. That's the only thing that's absolutely guaranteed. The way in which the proponents of this change tend to act in a way which is often aggressive, I think reflects their own vulnerability, that they are starting to be brave enough to voice and to start to deal with rather than.
Fuck yourself, you fucking lumper.
Oh, Eugene, come on, we've moved on from that, mate. Come on.
Let me speak before you decide to get
Why?
aggressive.
You keep speaking all the time. All you keep saying is that everybody's fucking wrong except you. Fuck you.
You can have your say in a minute. You said plenty before.
No,
So the whole point is,
why the fuck should I block you?
Go on, Andy.
The whole point is that when people start to propose stuff and are being criticised, then they will naturally become more aggressive, and that is what is happening with the proponents of these changes. And until that happens, no, Snatty, it doesn't matter what the role is, but what we have to understand is that when we don't know what the role is, then those who are challenged by the change of role will become defensive, and those who are challenged by that defense will become aggressive. And so this is a what do you call it? It's a tension between the conservative forces and the progressive forces, and I say those without any value judgment, but the different forces in society, and that's normal and natural, and we ought to accept that happens, understand it happens, accept the conflict, because out of conflict comes resolution and progress.
Yeah, I agree with the doc on that point. I think you could drill in on it a little bit, though. You could talk specifically about, what are things that, the natural extension of the woke culture, which, in one sense is accepting people for who they are. And I don't see anybody in this room who is disagreeing that we should accept people and treat them how they want to be treated, within reason, and use the pronouns they want. Some people change their names, and, we use their new names. That we ought to do that, within reason. But one thing that's happening in the political spectrum is that, and I don't know, I mean, Carl, if this is off topic, this is, I'm not talking about vulnerabilities here. I'm just talking about sort of this extension of what we're talking about here, which is, in the political landscape, we're talking about things like wage disparity, the patriarchy, privilege. And, I think that that's kind of a lot of garbage, to be quite honest with you, because it's not garbage to look at, for instance, wage disparity. You look specifically at that, but most people are talking about don't know what they're talking about. They're not looking at real data. They're not looking at, what is the actual job that men have, or anyone really, and it's a matter of, if people are doing the same job, it shouldn't matter what their gender is, but people aren't doing the same jobs.
Okay, David, thank you for that. Well, I'm installing a new system here now, so you don't have to hold your hands up like it's like primary school. What I'm going to do is that the person in the top left-hand corner, like we're reading a book, gets to speak next. Okay, so indicate to me that you want to speak, then I'll put you in the queue. So we've got Andrew, Gary, and Joel in the queue so far. Okay.
Mine was just a small point. I forgot to mention it last time. Pete Bleach has put something in the comments. Being your authentic self is both transitory if you continue to learn, and sometimes a luxury depending on your profession, role, or relationship. And I thought that was very interesting because, yes, you'd love to be your unfiltered, authentic self. It's never going to be possible in a politically correct world. And I agree, we should have a self-editing and a kind of concern for other people's opinions and perspectives. I just think, like I said, I'm of a certain age where we were raised to believe in one thing, and as Stephen said, it's not going to change overnight. There's people going to have to let us old farts have a bit of like practice room. Sorry, I use old farts in the nicest possible context there.
You don't strike me as an old fart, actually, but you make
my secret is I never had children, which has kept me footloose and fancy free for a great many years.
Well, you're looking good for 60. You're looking good for 60, Andrew.
I am, though.
Should we go to Gary?
Please.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to boil it down to even a basic level, right? Now think about this. and I want you to do this next time this situation arises. If you come across something that you're not used to, or you don't recognize, or doesn't fit into your normal sort of field of vision, right? And this is a typical human reaction. Because you haven't encountered it before, you want to test it out, and you want to see what it's about. And it's a primitive response. So a lot of people will challenge, attack, berate, or whatever, something they don't understand. And that is a way of trying to learn in your primitive mind whether it's a threat to you, or whether you can make use of it, or wherever it is. And it really is a primal thing. And next time you come across something that really, really triggers you off, just examine the way you're feeling at that moment, right?
Yes.
Because your primal self is in charge. And that's a very basic way to be thinking. Okay, if somebody, for example, a guy appears dressed as a woman or whatever, yeah. A lot of guys don't know how to handle this, yeah. And what do I do with this? So they end up maybe doing throwaway comments, taking the piss, another sexual innuendo. They don't know what to do with it. So indirectly, what they're doing here is challenging it, because they don't know what to do with it, and they will do this as a group. So there's a group of men. They'll harangue and harass something, and you see in nature, something new comes into the pack. It's challenged, it's looked at, and usually it's set upon until it's established its position. So that's what's happening in your mind when you come across something that you don't understand. It's a very primitive response, but you can control it by sitting around and saying, well, why am I feeling like this? Just hang on a minute. Just let's just stand back and have a look. So next time you come across this problem, try that, right? Just step out of that primitive man that's, chatting away in your head, and say, look, it doesn't have to be this way. Do you know what I mean? Because it's challenging all you've been learned and all your stereotypes and this, that, and the other. The other thing is, with the new culture, the woke culture, as we call it, right? It's a natural evolution of things. Because we're old school, as Elisa quite rightly pointed out, we're used to having the homosexuals, the lesbians, gays. Yeah, that's fine. That's we're used to that. We can do that now. We see it every day. But the next evolutional stage from our kids will be a whole gamut of different perceptions of sexuality, and that's their right. That's their right. Don't knock them. It's not our world, that we're leaving behind. If they want to do that, as long as they don't infringe on your own personal space, yeah, let them get on with it. You've got a right to believe what you want to believe. You've got a right to let them believe. There is middle ground. Anyway, that's enough.
Thank you very much, Joel. You wanted to speak.
Yes, I want to speak. Speaking about gender and everything else, this is my short version of everything. It's over fucking complicated. It's simple matter. You do not need to invent or make up genders just because you feel different from everything else. You're your own, and that's it. Now, regarding women and equal pay, because Andrew, David talked about it. This is a thing. Yes, there is the inequality in men having more pay than women in certain positions, but also feminists tend to see, why don't we see more women doing these types of jobs? And here is my direct question to those feminists or those women or men that are feminists. Why is it that, for example, you don't see women doing jobs that are only represented by males? For example, why don't we see timber women, for example?
Yeah, you would see them, but
cutting down trees. Why don't you see women working in construction, which isn't a more costume? Why don't you see, for example, women working on shipyards and everything else? Because there's some sorts of labor that women don't have the necessary requirement to do so. However, that doesn't mean there aren't women there in the world that have more testosterone than me. That is more capable of doing some jobs or even being better at doing those jobs than I am. That doesn't mean that there is a difference of pay. Not a difference of pay. That doesn't mean there is not availability. The thing is, women, as men, always portray certain types of jobs as only for men. that is a natural thing to imagine. That this has been from ages, even from our prehistoric growing up, since we start to develop into what we are now, Homo sapiens. That even before, men were the ones that were on the hunt. That doesn't mean that, for example, Vikings didn't have women fighting for them.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, women should receive the same amount of money when they do the same job as a man on the same position. Yes, I agree totally with that. But I also defend the fact that a feminist should not say that certain jobs should be only inspired for women, the same way as only certain jobs are only inspired for men. If they want to represent women and men on the same workplace, they should be open-minded in considering that women also should try do the same jobs as men do.
Okay, and I've got in an endeavour to bring this back to vulnerability. I do have a great question, and it's my general question for people with their opinions. How is that working out for you, Joel?
About vulnerability.
Having that thought about what feminists should be hearing from you. Where does that leave you? Are you relieved by sharing that with feminists, or do you remain in a somewhat what seems to be sort of stimulated?
I remain on my own opinion. That's
okay.
what I can say. Simple as that. Now, vulnerability, I will not call vulnerability because I'm not angry. I'm just exposing a fact.
Okay.
Simple as that.
It's just a fact. Everything's fine. There's no emotional reaction.
Why should I be vulnerable? The thing is, to me, vulnerability is what, for example, happened to me when 2 or 3 weekends ago, I exposed my personal life when I didn't want to, relating my family business or the troubles I having with my family. That was vulnerability to me back then, because I didn't want to share, especially to people I only know here on the internet, during internet, and not knowing personally, so that people actually know how I am, how I act, or who I am. That was an exposure of vulnerability that I had. The thing is, internet made this a little bit easier for men, or for women, or for all of us, because we don't have a direct contact and direct confrontation with a person that can be friend or enemy in explaining our problems.
Okay. Joel, thank you for that. I think we greatly admired you that evening for getting something off your chest. NubiaNet makes an interesting point. You're still talking about others, but not your own personal emotions and personal vulnerability. I mean, to me, that is the essence of vulnerability. You're owning and talking about your own experience rather than making judgments and having opinions, which is fine. This is the man cave. We have judgments and opinions, but vulnerability, I think, is something else. So let's move along the queue. Eugene, coming back to you now. Was there something you seemed pretty peed off earlier on? Is there something you wanted to add or say?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cause offense to Andy or anybody else. I really didn't. I probably do come across a bit brash, but no. My father owned a pub for 33 years, and a town, the most bombed town in Europe. And he had 2 rules. First rule was no religion. Second rule was no politics. And if you broke them rules, my father was also a boxing champion. Yeah. And he would knock you the fuck out and then throw you the fuck out.
Yes.
So,
is that where you were, Eugene?
Sorry, say that again, Karen.
Is that where you were a bouncer as well? Because you've done a bit of bouncing in your time, haven't you?
No, I bounced up north and south of the fucking country. Fucking, I was bouncing before there was any GBH or anything. There was no charges brought to you at that time, eh? You could knock the shit out. I was having 3 and 4 fights per night. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. 3 and 4 fights per night.
Good heavens.
That was the Wild West, man.
It sounds like, and that's a whole other program, which I'm sure. I mean, your story, autobiography, I'm sure would be amazing. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being here. I think Stephen wanted to something. Are you still hot to speak, Stephen?
Well, no, so I've completely forgotten the bit that I was going to say. But on the vulnerability stuff, I've been thinking about it, and before I came on, there's something for me. There's something about the trust of the people that are going to hear whatever it is I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So do I trust you? And even in this environment, do I trust the 8 other faces on the screen and the 2 million people that are going to watch this?
Oh yes.
But so there's something in there. What is someone going to do with this information against me? Is the reason that I don't share in certain scenarios, because everyone, I guess, has got an example of where they've said something to somebody and it's come back and bit them in the arse 2 weeks later.
Yeah, you're correct.
That depending on how harsh that was, how much that hurt us, how much of a betrayal that was, is going to carry forward and impact how we trust someone and how we share in the future.
I think, Carl, I think he's right. You shouldn't share too much.
Okay,
that's pretty straightforward. I don't think you should. But there is something about honesty. There's a certain honesty to vulnerability, but it doesn't mean you have to say everything. You don't necessarily have to put yourself out there, put yourself at risk. You can sort of, you can be honest with yourself and you can be honest with other people and be, sort of exhibit integrity in your character without sharing details that don't have,
Yeah, and context is often forgotten. Come to you in just a moment, Eric. I think context is really important. And when I was first considering us talking about this, I think someone was it you, Stephen, talking about generalizations? And so the generalization about this is, should men be vulnerable or not, which is such a stupid question. The question is, what might be gained or learned from being vulnerable, and what's the best place to do it? This in many ways is a stupid place to do it, isn't it? We're completely exposed publicly, and it's quite a reckless, yet interesting and exciting place to be vulnerable. But obviously, the best place, as V. Bramble says here, to be vulnerable is with your nearest and dearest. That's where it's going to count, isn't it? We could do a little bit of showboating here and appear quite vulnerable for the sake of being on a YouTube, because we're massive influencers around the world. We might want to make a bit of capital on that, but this is where it really counts. This is where it really counts. And this, fair play to you, Andy. Leo, I call her your woman. I don't mean that in any bad way, because I get how much she loves you when I hear her saying things like this and what she said and what she did for you before. Andy shows his vulnerability at times, and it's a strangely beautiful thing for a woman to see. That's where it matters, is from my point of view. Never mind showboating here on a YouTube channel, or like going into work and being vulnerable everywhere you can be. That would be pretty foolish and reckless and harmful, I suspect. And Andy's doing it where it counts. Go on, Eric.
So I guess I'll tag on to a little bit about what Stephen was talking about. And as many of you very well know, my first Zoom call about 2 months ago was with this group. I've never, ever been on a Zoom call. I've never, ever been on a place on the internet where other people that I know may or may not see me, hear or may not hear me. But I felt comfortable enough with the group of people that were on at the time that it was my time to become vulnerable, I guess, within this group.
And we appreciate you for that. And that's what's been so awesome. Yeah, not well said, Stephen. Well shown, Stephen. But yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for stepping up in that way. That's, to me, that's a big deal.
Of course, you guys are my support group till I get to come over there. And hopefully you'll be my support group once I get to go over there.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility.
Welcome to AA and AA meetings.
Are you speaking from experience there, Joel? Because I think the AA movement is the most astonishing thing.
But you forget one detail. I do not drink a lot, so
how did you get in there?
alcohol is not really a thing for me, but I do drink occasionally. But,
We're all addicted, Joel. We're all addicted to something. We're all addicted.
So is Joel suggesting I should be joining AA?
Unfortunately, if they only have some sense and pay attention to me, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. But moving on.
There's a great phrase for the vulnerable. Moving on, I think just sharing your true thoughts on issues makes you vulnerable. Yeah, I mean, and we've always welcomed you to do that, Charles. And I noticed with you especially this thing that maybe is one of the themes of the evening. You know, it's like talking about something. And that's where the judgments and opinions are, isn't it? And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We do a lot of that here. But then there's talking about yourself, which is an entirely different thing. And to me personally, that's where the action is when we've those to me are the best moments we've had, is where people have shifted the emphasis from talking about things to bringing the spotlight on themselves within this context. Let's put you at the front of the queue there, Gary. While I go for a pee. Nothing personal. I hope that doesn't hurt your feelings.
I've just suddenly thought something that because us blokes have trouble in sharing and being vulnerable, often we pack it all inside, don't we, and build it up. Yeah,
very much. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a very solitary place to be, and the human mind is only so capable, and sooner or later it will break. It can only take so much. I'm just thinking, right, and this is the thought. If we could learn to be a bit more communicative with each other and be a bit more honest, like in this group here, yeah, I think of the number of men who have suffered such trauma and such horrific things in their life that it's got too much for them, and they've ended their own life. Mm-hmm. So, as a group of men, we've got to be able to start talking about stuff, and we've got to save our brothers, really, because that's what counts.
But this is really not how we've been brought up, right, Gary?
Yeah, but we've got to change it.
Like what Andrew says and what Stephen says, we've been it's been ingrained in us to act or be a certain way. So to just break out of the box that easily or that quickly is not something you can expect.
This was my point alone, that my kind of current invulnerability is I look at the future of, and I'm going to say manhood, and I don't want to put a gender on it. I just want to say us fellows that are of a certain age, that were raised a certain way and have a certain perspective, are patriarchal role, if you like, is being removed because of modern convention, and that's fine. It's just I think we feel maybe subconsciously a little bit vulnerable because what's our role? What is our identity now? Because it's really hard, and I said this before, it's really actually quite hard to be a guy in this world.
It's much harder to be a woman because the guys can beat you up.
Okay, right.
That's just literally true. I'm sorry. If you're walking around and literally half the population is stronger than you.
I mean, I wasn't really talking about that kind of element for women. Yeah, guys walk around and don't worry about getting jumped on, and I'm sure it's not something that goes through your head. It goes through women's heads. I get that. But I would say, emotionally speaking, there is this kind of insular kind of containment that we have for a lot of stuff. I agree with Gaz on that one. So
interestingly, again, though, Andrew, before you go there, Doc, it's difficult being a man, and I find it difficult being a man are two very different propositions, aren't they? Because the first one is a pissing competition, isn't it? Like we've had some of tonight. My pain is worse than your pain, and you haven't got a right to speak because I'm more hurt than you are. We had that tonight. And then it's a similar thing with gender, isn't it? It's like hard. It's hard to be a man. But if we turn that into like I'm finding it difficult to be a man, then we're working with something, aren't we? Rather than just.
And I'm not taking anything from David's sentiment. I fully agree. It must be fucking bad being a woman compared to what it's like being a bloke. We are but simple creatures. Planet. I am for sure.
It's the 2% of men that are attacking women are the same 2% of men that are going to attack men.
Right, interesting.
Yeah, the other 98% of men aren't going to attack men or women.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
but you don't know. You don't know who it is.
No, but I don't know who it is either.
Right.
I'm just as concerned about walking through certain areas of Reading as women are.
Yeah.
And when the Sarah Everard stuff kicked off, they were saying, "Oh, I'm not going to walk home a different way because I'm being told to." Screw that. I walk home a different way than I walk to certain places after dark.
Yeah, but you're stronger than most every other woman. You're most every woman in the world, right? And so you're better equipped to defend yourself than 99% of the women.
I'm 5'7" and 140 pounds.
I know what you're saying, but I'm saying testosterone gives you an advantage for protecting yourself.
But I think Andrew was talking more about a role-based scenario versus like a physically based scenario.
Come back to that.
I get that.
Doc's waiting to speak, but we should talk. We should address that because with that statistics versus personal experience, isn't it? Go on, Andy the Doc.
Okay, so if we can go back to Andrew's point about men feeling threatened, and I get that. I personally have had some real issues about how I express my sexuality in terms of approaching women without wanting to seem predatory or in other similar ways. But if we go back maybe 40 years, men were feeling vulnerable just to allow, not 40 years, 60, 70 years, men were feeling vulnerable, allowing women to stay in the workplace after the end of the Second World War, because women were threatening their jobs. They were taking their jobs. They were keeping their jobs when they came back from the war and were demobbed. And so this is no different. It's a different sphere of our lives, but it's exactly the same. Sorry, I have real difficulty with my word finding at times after my stroke. It's the same kind of dynamic. The position of a group in society is threatened by another group in society, and whether or not they're able to stay in the workplace, or whether it's because they threaten our clear-cut gender-based roles that we've been taught to accept throughout our last 500 generations of humanity. So it's not a new dynamic. The words have changed, but the dynamic is the same, and this will continue. We will always have these changing dynamics of tension. And Andrew, what you're expressing was the same sort of defensive language that men who were trying to keep women out of the workplace were expressing 70 years ago. And it's the same kind of defensive language that men will, or the other groups in society will express in 100 years' time. And it will continue to be the case.
All right, cheers, Doc. David might want to respond to some of the stuff that's coming up on the screen. Do you,
well, so somebody said that their wife could kick my ass or arse. Yeah, maybe. I'm not a particularly violent, but so we have these interactions with people on a personal level that it can be quite subtle, and so if you talk to another guy who's bigger than you, you're going to behave differently. Yeah. And so we have these interactions with women every day that we don't even realize it, but we're sort of taking on this dominant posture because there's just the reality of the situation. And it's interesting to just be aware of that if you even think about that for a moment. And I think that's a lot of the.
Are you saying you do or we do?
Well, I just think as men, it's interesting to try to be aware of that in your just.
Come on, own it.
I don't.
Let's press the own it button here. Let's
Not as interesting as you fucking think, I can guarantee you that.
Let's pull it. I'll put you in the queue, Eugene. Let's zoom it in, right, and get micro, and then own these things that are being said. Let's see if we can practice that. So, is that what you do, David, when you're in a conversation with a woman? Would you say?
Do what? Am I aware of that?
Do you think you assume a dominant posture in conversation with a woman?
If you're aware of body language and you think about it, you'll realize that it's happening. Yes.
There is a level of.
Speak from I. Do you?
I'm not sure what your question is. Do I do it intentionally? Is that the question?
Do you personally do it?
Yeah.
I'm sure I have, of course.
Yeah.
You have to recognize what is the body language of being dominant. Usually, if you try to take up more space than you're entitled to, that's a sort of dominant posture. If you stand behind somebody, that's a dominant.
Right, I'm going to put you in a queue, Eugene. This is how it works now, okay? You can't just start effing and jeffing at someone because you don't like what they're saying. You're in the queue. You're in the queue, and as we shuffle along, you'll get your chance to eff and jeff if that's all you want to do. But I can't manage it if everyone starts doing that, like as a free for all. Okay, so we'll come to you, and we can see you're still doing it, but we can't hear it right now. Okay, so David, is that enough for you for now? I want to add something. Sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off. I just want to make sure you feel like you've had your chance to address what's been said on the screen there.
Yeah, we can move on. That's good.
Okay. All right. So Andrew Gilchrist. I'm not sure, Sean, who these are. Mansplaining, Scott Wicks. Interesting. In the comments as well, you're going to have to be a bit more specific. Who is that addressed at? And maybe own things as well, because that's the other thing from the comments. It's very easy just to do opinions and judgments. So see if we can do, as Stephen said there, as Charles is doing. I think most women want a loving, tough, hardworking man that can change a diaper and then kick ass when someone threatens them. But beautifully owned opinion there. Thank you very much, Charles. Andrew.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Charles, just as that comment was flashed up. And look, I mean, I'm sure as we're all modern men, that I agree with women should be given equal pay and equal opportunities and equal respect, and the same for all people of all identities. Yeah, okay, just want to lay that right out. For example, my faculty, the senior management, female, head of faculty, female, my colleagues, male and female. Like, I see plenty of gender equality in the workplace. What my fear is that when does it become gender unequal and males are kind of forced out because it turns from the old boys club into the old women's club.
Yeah, right.
Here is the role for the man in the future. I mean, this is just something that perhaps we're not aware that's happening, and it's happening under our noses. And
I would like to give us some time. Absolutely. The man of the future is a really good conversation to be having. Absolutely.
That was my point, is my vulnerability. I don't fear anything or anyone, no matter who they are or what side they are. But, you know, as the heretical, sorry, I've had beer.
Let's call it unpopular, shall we?
Hereditary has been that the man was the man and the woman was the woman. We're now into a fluidic world where these lines are blurred and our roles are kind of like diluted. And by the way, just thought, you know, if you're in England, Gem, it's a Bath Brewery beer. It's really nice.
Very good. Thank you for that advert. Hopefully,
adding that to the end because it's a really nice sort of deep brown ale.
Very good, deep brown ale. We will come back to you on the future of man, or we'll consider that question. I mean, that could be our parting shot tonight. You know, what do we think men might look like in 50 years' time? I'm looking forward to Eugene's answer on that. Gaz.
At the risk of being vulnerable, I think that from my own perspective, and probably a lot of other guys, if you're really true to your form, is that you're probably the most vulnerable when you first sort of talk to a woman and you're playing the mating game, because the pain of rejection that you can feel is insurmountable, and you have to go to this many times until you get an acceptance, and you go home feeling like shit, like the most ugliest thing on the planet, and your self-confidence takes such a battering. And I don't think women see this so much in our society, but they should know it, that when you shoot a guy down, he does feel it big time, and it knocks his confidence.
Thank you, Gary.
The other thing is in relationship to other men, and how you feel threatened by a bigger man or whatever. My dad once told me a very good tip, and it's followed me all through life. Right, it might be a big guy, right, standing up to you, right, but when you're on the floor together, you're both the same size. So get him on the floor.
Get him down. Okay. Oh, brilliant. Anna, Charles is right, and I can stand up for myself, but the majority of people, and I'm not a black belt when it comes to that. Good to hear, Anna. And let's go to Father Eugene there. Oh, I better unmute him as well, hadn't I? So,
allowed to speak?
what?
Am I allowed to speak?
Yes, exactly. This is how it's working. I'll put you at the front of the queue. So we can't complain about
it.
I know. Go on. Love you too. I don't know. Missing in Algo. Well, what I can show you is he's working on a project at the moment.
He's working on a project.
He's under the stairs. He's under the stairs somewhere.
Stephen,
exactly. That's always the quiet types.
Do you remember? Eugene, do you remember The Cure from the 1980s? Robert. This is Frank's tribute band for The Cure, and this is Stephen's joke from last night, The Prevention, because they are better than The Cure, and that's his new project. He's touring the Algarve with an 80s tribute to The Cure. So
you're all fucking arson partially.
All right, another question for you then, Eugene.
Neil Perkins is fucking caught fucking Frank and stuck him in his shed.
All right, what would you like? Would you drink this, Eugene? He definitely drink it. Okay.
I'll drink it.
No encouragement needed there. Okay, gentlemen, who wishes to move or say anything else before we move on to this idea of the man in the future? Because I do appreciate what you're trying to, or not what you're trying to. Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. What you're, yeah, Andrew, you say rather than me trying to summarize. Go on.
Right, just quickly, if someone asks me something and then I explain, am I mansplaining or am I just answering the question?
Yes, quite.
That's
and
Stephen comes. Jesus.
Stephen, can you just explain, just sort of illustrate what you said about that?
Yeah, so it comes from a thing I had a while ago. I had a conversation with someone on Facebook, and they accused me of being a racist and mansplaining in the same sentence.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was absolutely, they didn't comment on what I'd actually said. They just went straight to my gender, my colour, and the rest of it. And it's like, if you don't agree with me, fine. If you don't agree with what I've said, call me a dick, call me something else, call me an arsehole, whatever. But jumping to these straight derogatory terms that are gender-based, when that's what they're trying to defend, is contradictory. If you either treat everybody equally or you treat nobody equally.
So it's a bit like vegan-splaining. It's just like when someone steps forward and tells you something without invitation, that could be mansplaining or vegan-splaining, couldn't it?
You know, how do you know when someone's a vegan?
Well,
Don't worry, they'll tell you.
Yes, and if they haven't, there are a number of things.
I've been vegan for time, so I can make
same here. But let's furnish the list of splainers, all right? Because there are a number of splainers. There are mansplainers. Let's face it. There are blokes who will tell you what they want to tell you without waiting for your invitation. There are vegan splainers. I haven't got a TV splainers. Those people who love to tell you they haven't got a TV and haven't seen TV for 20 years. What other sorts of splainers are there, do we think?
This sounds like as many like gender identities as there are splainers.
Exactly. But I'm more worried of splainers than I am of gender identities, I have to be honest with you.
Oh, a splainer.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's this general category of people explaining things to you that, for instance, you may already know, and they're not listening to you. You're trying to help them. It's like, yeah, I know that, or you're trying to, provide some feedback during the conversation, and it's just not working.
Yeah,
if they have their own slants on things, and they're going to come over the top of you no matter what.
That's a splainer, I think, isn't it? Double splainer, perhaps.
See, I guess for me, thankfully, I'm not getting involved in a lot of the same situations maybe as you guys are these days. No, really, no joke.
Sure. No, that's why I'm laughing, because I'm sure that's true.
And it's just, I'm not in a work environment anymore. Thankfully, I'm retired, hopefully. So I don't have that to deal with. So I sympathize with Andrew because I understand exactly what he's talking about. And I think about, my past work experience. And if we rolled the clock back 10 years, I don't know what would have happened to me. You know what I mean? But 10 years ago, I was still a good guy, but you always had to be careful. Well, now you really have to be careful about what you say, what you do, how you interact with people. Back 10, 15, 20 years ago, you were still respectful, but you weren't held to maybe the same standard or that you are now. I don't know.
I think it
very interesting.
I think it might be more difficult in large organizations too, where it's a little more impersonal. People don't know each other as well, and so firing somebody because they used the wrong pronoun is maybe not that big of a deal to the organization. We can do without we can replace people. It's not all that difficult. And
so I'm going to counter that, David. The problem is it's easy to replace people. What's the trick is to find personnel that are competent. It doesn't matter if they make slip-ups, minor misdemeanors, but it's easy to replace staff, but it's hard to get any competence. In my experience in the workplace, you really have to filter out a lot of candidates.
Now, truth be told, okay, I married a person that I met in the workplace 30 years ago.
A lot of people do that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Now, it would be a whole different scenario that maybe I wouldn't even take the chance to go that far because I may be looked upon as something else. Well, you know what I'm saying? It's just a totally different situation right now.
HR departments, their job is to set the rules for that type of thing. They're supposed to communicate that clearly to employees. So in particular, if you're the other person's manager or they're your manager, that's a no-no. Okay, that's immediately you should. But if you're not, there's not organizationally, you're not one above the other. You don't really have to tell anyone about it. The only problem is that harassment is harassment. So, you have to be a complete idiot to not know you're harassing someone. I'm sorry. That's
wait a second. All you need is an accusation to be made against you, and you're already defending your position.
Yeah,
okay?
That's true.
But even if it is only makeup.
All right. Come on. Look, I'm going to wind you in again because look, has this happened to anybody here, or is this just the terrible fear of the woke era we're living in? Has this actually happened? Because
I'm
actually,
just trying to bring Carl, differences 20, 25 years ago till now.
I get you, Eric. I absolutely agree with you that actually maybe not a lot has changed because everyone 25 years ago people thought they were surrounded by idiots at work, and it's the same thing now, but maybe it's even worse. But the interesting thing to me is I've forgotten what I was going to say now. So it's no longer the. It's no longer the interesting.
I probably would have been fired. So about this is maybe 15 years ago when I still drank. I after work we went out and drank, and somebody was like doing like an old English acting thing, and I like threw a pickle at him and hit him in the face with a pickle.
What?
It's like, yeah, I don't know why. It was like drinking. It's such a stupid thing, right?
Well, no, I mean,
But-
Dick Van Dyke sort of actors deserve that. I think if that's what was happening.
It's
No,
the old
they-
pickle, routine.
we were all, we were all
In
just
Britain.
drinking. It's just, and there's other things happening, right? That I'm not going to go into too many details, but I'm someone who's been careful about work relationships and specifically avoided that. But probably some of my behavior after hours drinking with people, I probably would have been fired for that. You're not supposed to throw food on people.
Oh, come on! It's not the end of the world, is it? This. I think I've remembered now. But if you got, am I guessing right that you David, and you Eric might describe yourselves as libertarians
with a small L?
Okay, so why can't corporations be libertarian as well and just say what the hell they want?
Because there is always a second agenda when they try to represent something.
No, but what I'm saying is, Joel, it's like it's a bit like this vaccination thing in the UK at the moment. If a company wants to say you have to be vaccinated to work here, they should be able to say that. Mm-hmm. And if Twitter wants to get rid of you, I mean, I don't agree with either of these situations. No, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm asking you.
What you're saying about vaccination.
Yeah,
I think that example isn't one that should be the correct one, because that is a public health issue.
All right, so let's talk about falling in love with colleagues then. See, as a man, and I think as a real man, if you fall in love with someone at work or just want to be romantic with someone at work, you would put that before your pay packet. In my world, and you would just, if HR said to you, look, you're getting too close to that colleague, this isn't right, you say, okay, well, I love this person, I want to be with this person, stick your job. That to me is the heroic and manly thing to do in that situation, and not to be crying about how HR works in the corporate world.
For that, you don't need to do that in the job. You just do after work.
Can I just jump in here? This is my point. If you like someone at work, outside of work should be fair game. Inside the office, be professional. Wait, let me just say this. How stereotypical did it used to be of the guy banging his secretary in the office? Like, I'm sure you probably cast your mind back in all of your careers and know that went on.
Yeah. Are you saying then, Andrew, that I shouldn't have photocopied my scrotum in work?
First mankini, then pictures of your scrotum around.
Get your own.
That's what the Zoom setting was invented for.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary.
Well, so you mentioned libertarianism. One thing that can happen in the state that I'm in is companies don't need a reason to fire you.
Wow.
Okay. Well, then,
it's a life-to-work state.
Who wants to be in that environment? You do the right thing to move to Portugal. I mean, that's mad. Leave that world behind, David. It is clearly insane. Leave it behind. Eric, I think you wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, no, my point earlier was that back when I was courting my now wife, if she were to make an accusation against me at the workplace, it would not have been treated in the same fashion as it is now. Whether that be right or whether that be wrong. That's the point I was trying to make.
We're better at it now, I think.
That I took, right now, if I was in the same situation, I may or may not have taken that chance. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what chance you're referring to, because there's a way to know if somebody's interested in you.
Yes, I get that. But all of a sudden, okay, you go out on 5 dates, let's say, okay? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, some goes off the rails. And she's like, that's it, and I'm going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
It could very easily happen.
Right, but I mean, there's...
That's most of my past relationships.
Andrew, don't.
There are ways that companies deal with this problem now. They start an investigation, you know, and I think your point earlier that the accusation is enough to cause problems for you because you might have been looking for a promotion that's on hold for a little bit. There has to be an investigation. But I think that maybe the problem that people have with new rules and things around sexual harassment is overdone. I think we've made good progress, and in general, it's good.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
I'm the workforce now, so I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Hold the front page because Chris Roberts and Charles Mitchell are agreeing with each other here.
Forget that.
No.
This
No,
is
never.
the end of the world, isn't it? This was foretold in the Bible. I think there was going to be a special moment.
I'm expecting a meteorite to hit my.
Yeah, exactly. and this is what they agree on. When sarcasm and satire die, we are really screwed, and we're almost there.
Exactly correct.
And do you think Chris and Charles will be hugging each other whilst that happens? Finding solace in each other's arms.
But also, there is the thing. Imagine, for example, if it is a woman that is on a higher position than you are, and she is the one making the advances at you, and yet you are the one at risk because you are the one that is because she can turn the tables around anyway and say that you are the one making passes at her.
Oh, this is fear-based talk though. Any real anecdotes?
Not fear-based because that can happen.
I know it can happen technically, but I mean, you know, come on, let's get back. Let's get back to
where I'm
look,
trying.
Chris, this is
where
where.
to point
Sorry,
out is that it isn't just the men that are the ones that are idiots.
Of course not. Of course not. Men certainly don't have the monopoly on that. Gaz.
I'm a little more cynical than most. I think this so-called progression we have in women's rights and harassment harassment in general is based on litigation more than anything, and companies don't want to be taken to court because they don't want to be in court, so they've had to have some sort of policy and a token to say, oh, we don't have this sort of thing, just in case they end up footing the bill. Which
it's definitely bad PR, isn't it?
Who wants to work in a place like that? So hold on a minute. I don't know if it's a sexual comment or a political comment here. Who is going to be the bottom? That's not much of a chat-up line, Chris, I have to say. You're gonna have to.
I don't mind being in the bottom if she does all the work.
Oh, wow. Very progressive.
You lazy bastard.
Hate the party, but rock the dance part. Absolutely right.
Plus, Joel is not married.
All right. Let's conclude, and I know this can take a really long time, especially when David lobs one of his philosophical grenades into the mix like he did last week. But let's go back to Andrew's thing. Andrew's, and I know he tried to post a picture of it earlier on. I saw you.
That was a thing. So
you got it off Google, I know. So man of the future, then Andrew would, if I may paraphrase, and tell me if this is right or wrong, Andrew. But there is a concern about what is it to be a man. What's going to happen? What's the forward trend here? If the woke generation have their way, the old school, the traditional male days are numbered. Is that the gist of it?
Well, I mean, like I said, what we've seen in our lifetimes is your man went to work, you had a housewife, and there were defined roles in the home and in society. Now, because of the way the modern world is, there is a lot more fluidic kind of definition and blurred lines. So in that case, we're going into a future of where's our historical role going? What are we going to be? What is going to be our assignation? Or are we going to be irrelevant compared to all of the other identified people that matter?
All right. So let's have a last go at being vulnerable and kind of owning it and saying, I think this or I fear this or whatever. What's your view on it? What concerns you, Andrew, about this?
Well, I mean, for myself, and I'm guessing you guys as well, we're probably a bit too long in the tooth to really have much bearing on our rest of our lives. but if you worry about your sons and daughters and your grandchildren and their children, what world are they going into that we've kind of opened up this chaotic can of worms? Does the world need to be more complicated than it is already currently? Because
from your point of view, what you would like it less so or more so?
You can complicate the hell out of things. It just adds to higher stress, which isn't bad. It isn't good for any human existence. As high stress levels, as we know, lead to things like self-medication and drinking drugs and everything else.
Yeah.
I think perhaps people need to have a long, hard look, realize what's important and focus on that, and everything else is rather irrelevant.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Unless you wanted to add more to that. Well said, and thank you for your contribution, particularly on that angle tonight. Eric J, a statement on men, masculinity, and this time we're living in.
I guess I take a lot of the same or similar positions as Andrew does. I'm on the back nine, as they say right now, and for me to see like future changes, which is going to take a long time to really take place. I don't trouble myself with that. It's like I live my life every day the way that I live it, which is most comfortable to me and my family, and that's kind of how I carry on every day. I don't trouble myself with the everyday nitty gritty now because it's just way too tedious to do that. So I don't know how better to say it than that.
No, I mean, that says a lot to me, as in, you're on the back nine, you're more concerned with living your life than being concerned with all these ideological struggles. Possibly.
I just kind of guide my way through and work it out the best way for me that I can, and that's it.
That's a pretty noble endeavor.
To be able to enable change right now, it's just not going to happen. So
do you mean to tell me, Eric, that you just want to enjoy the rest of your life?
Yeah, pretty much. That's
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That's pretty much the way to say
selfish, isn't it?
And that's one of the main reasons that I want to move to Portugal in the worst.
Disgusting.
I want to drink wine. I want to have pastel de natas. I want to have bacalhau. I want to look at the water. That's what I want to do.
You're
unbelievable.
Boots,
mate. Finger boots.
Yeah, Eric, you're unbelievable. With coming in here, wanting to enjoy the rest of your life. What on earth has happened to this world?
Coming in here, enjoying yourself.
All right.
I just have one other thing. Sorry, my wife, wonderful Margarita, is of the old school female opinion, where she actually would hate for me to confess this. Her private words to me is, "You drive, men are better at driving. Men are stronger. Men should do this. Men should do that." And I'm like, cool. She still kind of has the perspective that men should do these things, like, I don't know, the dirty jobs and the hard work, because they're men. And I'm like, cool. That's pretty much what it was like when I was a kid. Men went and did stuff.
And may I ask a personal question? How's that working out for both of you?
I mean, I'm absolutely enamored with her, and I hope she is with me.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. That's a pretty good test to pass, isn't it?
She is, like I said, she's one of those things that she likes me driving because she says men are better drivers, and that's not me saying that. That's her opinion.
But I've got to let you in. I've got to let you into something here, Andrew. Women.
Sorry, Carl. I'm going to piss off a little bit, Andrew. Piss off, not really piss off, just messing up a little bit. Well, according to Portuguese studies, men tend to drive faster than women and have more accident than women. But the level of accidents men have tend to be more damage to the vehicle regarding women. Pardon, I will rephrase everything because I was a little bit wrong. Men tend to have less crashes than women, but the amount of damage that a car takes on a man crashing its car is far superior than a woman having a crash with her car. Even though women tend to have more accidents.
Okay, thank you. No. I mean, if that's the data, that's the data.
I agree with the statistics. Like, women are safer drivers and everything else, but that was just her opinion, and why she gets me to drive all the time because she prefers it.
And also, Andrew, I have to let you into something as a slightly more senior male, is when you're driving, women will talk to you and ask you questions that they know they're going to get better data and Stephen's going to come back on this, I think. But there's a little trick. So women can talk to you while you're driving, and your mind is occupied in a certain part of your mind, and they're likely to have a better conversation with you and get more of what they want from the conversation with you in that regard.
I don't
before Stephen kills me, generally speaking. Okay, so
I think what it is she likes to be driven because, to be fair, you know what it's like when we go out for drinks, you want to give the keys to your wives and go, you drive, darling, I'm pissed. But it's like she prefers me to drive, and so she doesn't have to. And I'm happy to do so.
So the micro and the macro there. Fellas, we've got to move on. Go on, Eric, because we've got to get to Gaz.
Sorry. I don't plan on driving in Portugal. I'm going to live in a place with no car, so I don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
On to the man of reason.
Okay,
that's no fun. That's no fun. You want to drive?
I'm slightly confused about the future of men and their role in society, and because we have all this what we've been talking about, what we call woke culture, but sexual identity and broader spectrums and stuff. But I've never seen women wear less clothes, be more made up, be cosmetically enhanced, and more sexualized than I've ever seen as I do now. So have we gone backwards or have we gone forwards? From my perspective, as women, as people, it puts them more, like an object. But that's just my old point of view. But hey, as a moralist, from that point stance,
Gary,
hang on. I've just got to finish this. Right.
Let's put you in the queue.
It's not my place to preach, right? And the future of the rest of the world and history, right? From my generation, we haven't done such a good job, to be honest. I mean, we've buggered up the planet. We've constantly warred with each other, and not been a great kind of example. So it's their world. Let them figure it out. I won't be here, so let them get on with it.
You're talking about the youngsters and who we're characterising as more woke and challenging to our old ideas.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we haven't got a right to tell them what to do with their world. We've buggered ours up, so they've got to fix theirs.
Yeah.
Okay, are you done there, Gary?
Yeah.
Okay,
we'll go to Joel, and then we'll come back for a second round if there's still things to do. So, Joel.
What I want to say about Gary's statement is the fact that when women now pick up those enhancements, so to speak, they say there's female empowerment. When we look at them, at least in my perspective, looking at them, I see them as trying to represent something of a feminine form that they cannot not have access, but lack the intelligence of portraying in reality what women should be. Now, the thing is, those women that come to then go to the social media and say, "Oh, I did this. I am a full grown-up woman. I can decide whatever I want to do." Yeah, but essentially, you're still not being actually feminist or being a woman. You're acting as a toy, as an object. The only difference is you go to a doll, and she doesn't answer, and she's immovable. The difference between her and what those women like to represent as self-empowered women that like to boost up their physique is that actually they're acting like the dolls that we have. They don't do anything.
Do you have dolls?
Speak for yourself.
No,
Speak
I
for
don't
yourself,
have
Joe.
dolls.
I don't have a doll.
Men in general.
He said he has dolls. I heard it.
I did say that, didn't he? We have dolls.
Okay.
Not that we judge. Not that we judge. I'm just interested to know what it's like. But
Yeah,
anyway.
dolls.
Joel, I mean, really, you're saying you don't like it, right?
Yeah, no. What is the point of that? If a woman wants to be a woman and captivate a man, all she has to do is be herself.
nicely
She doesn't need,
for you.
she
That
doesn't
is
need,
for you. For you.
yeah, for me, it works.
Yeah.
She doesn't need artificial things like makeup or boosting up the boobs or ass with fake whatever products to enhance those parts of the body to attract a man.
Okay, thank you very
Just
much,
be
Joel.
yourself. That
Be
will
yourself.
suffice to attract men.
And this is the age where there's been some general agreement here. Andrew, we'll come back to you after a whole round, all right? We have been talking about this thing about being yourself. I've got some reservations about that. I generally agree, but I'll wait for my turn to say more about that because it's Stephen's go now, who might want to pick me up on the driving thing.
No, so the driving thing is, I'm single, and there's a reason I'm single. And I'm more than well aware it's my problems, not anybody else's. But if I'm driving, I'm driving. I'm not talking. I'm not listening to the radio. I'm paying attention to the road because everyone else on the road is an idiot. And if an accident's going to happen, I'm going to make sure I'm aware of what's happening around me. So if someone tries to talk to me when I'm driving, they don't get any information. Was the point that somebody was making earlier. But as far as where's all of this going to take us, and even down to what do I want? So kind of with Gary on where the younger people take it and where it ends up for them, that's their direction. They're going to create what they want it to be. That's going to cause me and a lot of other people a vast amount of discomfort for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And within that, and as I say, it's a generational thing. So the next generation won't have the same problems around this. They'll have problems about something else.
Yeah.
And the thing that concerns me is there's already very high male suicide rates because we don't have groups and we don't talk. And there was a part of the conversation earlier was that we put it all in a box. And the analogy that someone told me on a different type of story was we have a box for everything. We've got 100 boxes. And when something happens about it, we put it in I got told off for not doing the washing up, or I did this, or I did that, or I said something wrong. We put it in that box. And it's not until that one of those boxes is full that it explodes that we have a problem. So what I want for me personally is something along these lines. Bell down off. Whereby getting
Susanna, don't you?
I bought a wireless doorbell and next door rings it. But what I want for me is a group where I can share things on a regular, small basis, so that I can drip feed stuff out rather than it getting to the point where it explodes.
Yeah.
I think this is fun and this is good. I don't think this is the place where I'm truly vulnerable. I'm sharing some stuff, but there's a definite line that I've drawn about what I'm going to share here, because it is totally public. And as I said earlier, it's about the trust of the people in the room. And I don't know who's in the room, so I can't. I'm not going to share. And the other bit of that is, somebody mentioned it earlier, is the people that just share everything all the time.
Yes.
I've seen lots of vulnerability for the sake of it or for the purpose of it, to make them look like a certain thing. And I'm not a fan of that, and it stands out a mile to me. So true, authentic vulnerability is something different to me.
Yes, those share-splainers. Who constantly sharing. Yeah, that's interesting. That's another one for the list, isn't it? Stephen, thank you. And thanks for coming on the screen tonight and stimulating this debate in the first place. And of course, you wouldn't want to go to a men's group or a sharing group where people can chip in from the outside and shout through the window, "Can I have a 99 from the ice cream van?" This is a strange environment indeed. So well done, everybody, for being so open. David, you are the future of masculinity. David, I think the youngest of us here. We're giving you that baton, that heavy baton.
Yeah.
No pressure. No pressure.
Well, so I think I worry about young people younger than me. I'm 43. I consider myself, I guess, I'm middle aged, but
Oh,
I think of
Carl.
myself as
Yeah.
Sorry,
Belly and diapers.
sorry.
Sorry,
Carl,
David.
he's not
No,
the
Joe, come
youngest.
on.
He's the same age as I am. Fuck
Yeah,
off.
you look so
Sorry,
much
you are
older, though.
disappointed.
But-
Go on.
I think people are arguing about the wrong things right now, and it's a distraction.
Okay, yeah, David, sorry, go on.
And I think what's the real problems that we have right now, and the ones that we're going to be dealing with 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we're not talking about those. I mean, we are, but like, what do you do when you see somebody who's they're changing their name and they want to be somebody else, and they think their problem is sexuality, but it's really they're just not taking care of themselves. They're terribly obese, even as a young child, and you can see they're destroying their lives, and they're like, well, I just want to be a different gender.
Yeah,
it's like that's not your problem. And so it's a distraction. The media hypes it up. Politicians take advantage of it, and along with so many other things. And it's kind of scary, but also, whatever. I'll be fine. I think everything's gonna be fine. We're living in one sense, we're living in the greatest times in history.
yes.
Modern advancements. We can travel the world. On average, we're wealthier than we've ever been. But we have problems. Our food is terrible. It's not really food. People are eating garbage.
America.
We're arguing about petty nonsense. We're stuck on what it means to be a man when it means something different to every man. And we're stuck on what it means to be a woman, and it's the same thing. They if they want to make modifications to themselves, more power to them. We shouldn't be cynical and try to judge why it is they're doing what they're doing. If they're self-absorbed, it's going to show up. You'll see it. You don't have, it's not about changes they've made to themselves. So yeah, I worry about people being self-absorbed and teaching it to their children, and people sharing their thoughts and their opinions as fact, and when it's not the case. I don't know, but I don't worry all that much, actually. I know I sound downtrodden or whatever.
No, I get it. I totally get it, David. I totally get it. And this is we are multitudes, aren't we? I see that you have a very insightful and sensitive aspect to yourself, and you also don't take it too seriously. And you're very sort of self-responsible. Totally get that from your appearances here, and I really admire it. So yeah, and without being patronising, you and Joel obviously are the Man Cave juniors here tonight. And it's good to see. It's good to see that you think that way. In what, half a generation, maybe, how I would see you. Not behind me in any negative sense, but chronologically.
Yeah, I want to live to 110. So.
Okay, great. Hence the electric griddle choice over the gas.
Oh, it's a gas griddle. It is.
I'm joking, but those healthy choices are going to serve you well, I think. Over none of that flame and coal and stuff in your food.
I have that as well. Depends
on
the
okay, all right. Depriving me of my passive aggression there.
Dave's a guy that's figuring it out his own way too. Sort of like what I was saying. He's going to fit himself in where he wants to fit in, and he'll find his way.
Yeah.
In Portugal. Specifically,
in Portugal too. Isn't that amazing? Our common sort of theme here. So, if I may, before we come back to you, Andrew, very interesting, the connection between what Gary was saying and you were saying there, David. So, on the one hand, Gary's saying, we've screwed it up. We give it over to the youngsters now. It's their turn, and we shouldn't be too harsh on them. And then you seem to be saying, David, well, perhaps we should say to them, what you're doing is self-absorption, and that is not, from our experience, from what we can see, that doesn't work very well. And I think I'm a bit more authoritarian than Gary might be. And Gary and I have this long-standing, it's not a battle exactly, but a sort of joust about the truth. And I happen to think there is something that's not been talked about at all tonight, which is a natural order. like, you know, what I would call the truth that has permeated. You know, we're talking about, you know, life probably since the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution. We took the context of our discussion tonight has been very, very recent for humanity, and I would like to think that there's something far deeper and longer standing than that, which you could look at and you could ascertain. That's why I'm always asking this boring question: how's that working for you? And you can ask that of humanity, can't you? What systems work for people, and what things don't work for people? And that's my greatest criticism of the age we're living in, is that discernment is absent, really. You know, people can be doing the most self-harming things now, and we might write that off as, oh, that's just someone being themselves or experimenting, or that's their right to do it. And on the one hand, I totally understand that and get that they are being themselves, and we totally encourage that in postmodern times. Go be yourself. But we can also acknowledge, maybe in the way you're saying there, David, is people might be doing themselves great harm, where as elders, if you like, we might say, stop it. Seriously, this really doesn't work. And I can show you how it doesn't work, not just from 200 years ago or 400 years ago, throughout time, throughout the belief systems and structures of humanity. This is not good for people to be so self-absorbed or so off point, if you like, in terms of what actually works for human beings. And I know times change, context changes, but I think there are some, like we said before, like Gary, you were saying, you know, there's a primal thing. As well as there's primal responses, I think there are eternal truths about human beings, which at the moment we're ignoring at our peril. And we're feeling the heat of that. And it does express itself as men wondering and being bothered by, is there even a place for us in the future? And I think that's how it's coming out at the moment. And of course there is, you know, and I think that this is all part of our discovery. And I think it's a really painful time. It's like a minefield. It's like people are walking through an experiential landscape where they're blowing bits of themselves off. They're self-harming to find out what might work for them, where they might be spared a lot of trouble if us elders didn't say, it's just down to you now, be yourself. But look, this does work, this doesn't work. It's up to you what you do, but I'm not going to be afraid to say that to you. Gary, can I come back to you after we've come back to Andrew? Because I'll budge you up the queue a little bit. Go on, Andrew.
Well, I think what you said was fantastic and insightful opinion. And I'd also like to disagree with Joel. I think if women want to exercise their rights to body expression and body cosmetics and a certain way of dress, fine. Everyone should have the option to exercise their life as they believe they want to. That's the self-choice thing that we were saying from last week. If people want to drink until they drink themselves into a stupor or take drugs or whatever, there should be an element of self-choice. If you want to and you think that's what you want to do, then crack on. As long as you don't affect others or force your belief onto others that disagree with you, which is what we're seeing in kind of this modern society, is I now have to consider everyone else's perspective before I upset them. And it's a case of, well, what about my perspective? Apparently it doesn't have any bearing what I think. It's I've got to be editing what I think to consider everyone else. Then it's kind of like, well, where's my expression going? Because like I said, as a male and as a heterosexual male, I think we're becoming the focus of a lot of media pressure, like male privilege, maybe white privilege, or a lot of things. I mean, to be fair, all of us have had to drag ourselves up from a less than fortunate society of post-war 50s, 60s, 70s Britain, which was pretty much bankrupt for decades after, and a tough time for our parents and a tough time for ourselves as kids. And of course, you know, a certain method of upbringing. But, you know, I think that's probably made us stronger individuals of our generation. And what I see is that strength also in the next generation isn't there. We've not instilled it into the next generation. And, you know, there's a lot of influence that isn't family based. There's a lot of media influence. There's a lot of maybe popular culture influence. It's not all healthy, I don't believe. But, you know, I still think you need to kind of strike that balance between like senior generations like respect the elders as it used to be, and take what they say as knowledge and wisdom. But they also don't patronise, because that seems to be also something that you can easily do as an authoritarian, is be seen to be patronising.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what I kind of trying to explain what this minefield is where we are now as a really awkward position from what used to be to what is now, and we're kind of the meat in the middle of the sandwich. And like I said, I'm all for if someone wants to dress away, if they want to transgender, if they want to be a man but dress as a woman and put on high heels, cool, whatever. I have colleagues that are transgender, and I don't treat them any differently or even raise an eyebrow. It's not important to me. As David was saying, what I worry about also is the issues that seem to be of high importance these days aren't really important enough for anything when you consider bigger picture thinking, such as environmental pollution, atmospheric contamination, global temperatures, ice cap erosion and melting, desalinization of the seawater, which changes weather patterns, which will affect crops, sustainability, populations on certain land masses. There's going to be mass human migrations in the future. There's a lot of problems that we aren't focusing on so much as, like I said, the rather self-absorbed me too, or it's all about me and my feelings. It's not really that important in the modern scheme of things, I don't think. But apparently it is to an element of society which is being sort of forced upon me, I feel.
Okay, thank you for owning that. Garvo.
I'm going to kind of contradict a little bit here, because I don't think it's necessarily the fault of the younger generation or this self-absorption thing and identity thing. If you look at our parents and their parents, they lived in a very different world, and a very social world where you had to depend on each other. So it was very much more community-based. Then we came into the 60s and the 70s, and we had self-expression, self-awareness, self-discovery. We had our personal trainers, we had our personal physicians and whatever, and it became about me, it became much more singular. What's good for me? How can I do better? How can I be more successful? How can I look better? How can I do this? It was all about I. So the responsibility really lies with us for that. It was our generation, because it didn't happen before. It wasn't present. It just wasn't there, right? And our mind has been taken away from the big picture. And I say the big picture, the environment, the world, the people that live in it. And we've become focused on us and what's good for us. And that is what's wrong with the world today, because we don't think outside of that. Our first instinct is, well, what's good for me? And I hope our children and their children will develop a greater sense of awareness about the world they live in and the people around them.
I'm just going to project as well, one last thing. In my job as an educator, my biggest job, and I tell my students this, my biggest job or my greatest success will be is if I can get them to think wider picture, bigger perspective, and open their eyes to a wider world. My greatest task, if I can get students to think, that's my job.
Do you believe that children are our future?
Sorry, say again?
Do you believe that children are our future?
Teach them well.
And let them find the way, is it? I think we're going into a school of rock there. I can imagine you doing that, Andrew. And we won't blow your cover that you just went in for a mate one day and now you're still teaching 3 years later. Cheers to you. Andrew, thank you so much. Gary, thank you so much. Eric, Joel, Stephen, you've got a lot to be responsible for tonight in a good way.
I don't know what I have to add more to what my predecessors here have said, but are the children our future? I think the children are their future.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at right now. And, based on a lot of my comments tonight, you may think that I'm a selfish person.
No,
definitely.
But I could be viewed by the greater masses as that. But
I'll tell you what, though.
No, you don't come off like that.
I've got a message for all of you that when asked, you can all rise to the occasion to be the elders in whatever in the various kind of fragments of, you know, I rate you all as people who, if put on the spot by younger people, please tell me what you think about this, or please advise me. You would all do
absolutely.
You would do a job from your heart about that.
Be as honest as possible.
Yeah,
and whether they follow my way or they don't, you know, that's up to them. But excuse me, I would share my honest, you know, opinion in you know what I think, of course.
Yep, we get that, and you know, I think we're quite outspoken and we're quite from the heart as well. And you know, I love you all for that. May I say it in a vulnerable sort of way there. Got great night, some interesting views. Thank you, Sean G. I may have put the wrong emphasis.
Try harder, honestly.
Thanks for the conversation. And yeah, and we should say thank you to everybody. Some regulars and some new people there who've got into the spirit of it as well. Because, you know, it is a risky venture, I think, just being completely, in its own way, it's a vulnerable thing to do the Man Cave, to have a kind of pub chat in front of anyone who would want to watch that. And again, I take my hat off to all of you for being, you know, taking that sort of risk as well. You're lovely, Eric, is a final thought here from Oregon QPR. I hope we both get to Portugal sometime in the future. So you got fans.
Thank you.
I think a three-word ending from me, which is well played, gentlemen. A very, very good evening tonight, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
You as well.
Nice one, gents.
Ciao, ciao.
Have a great weekend to all.
Yeah, bye for now.